Good morning.
Good morning. How's everybody?
Good morning. Doing okay.
Great.
Yes, sir.
So what's going on in the world of federal government?
Oh my gosh. Hmm.
It's like it's not even a funny thing.
No, it's not funny.
It's not. It's really scary that people are getting laid off. Just last week there was 11 people that were let go from where I work at because they fell under the 1 year probationary
Hmm.
period. Um, Two of those people that fell under the 1 year probationary period actually have been with the VA for one 8 years, another one I think it was like 4 years, but they transferred into another role. But because they were in their new role, still fell under that 1 year probationary period.
Hmm.
And so now they're saying that by I can't even remember the date. It's some date in May that they would be letting go of staff that were remote and teleworking. Even though a lot of us have already went back into the office and started working. Um, we've been placed in post offices, police departments, um, other VA facilities and sites. But two people that I work with, that I directly work with in my department, are at the post office.
Come back to work, but we don't have a place for you
Yeah,
just because we're looking for an excuse. Yeah, and
yeah,
so not good.
yeah.
I had a EDCI group in the fall, Doctor of Curriculum, and a lot of those are still classroom-based people. Um, my LS folks are leadership people. They're out of the classroom. But I had three in that group from far western North Carolina that were applauding the notion of closing the Department of Education so that they wouldn't have to have exceptional children in their classes. And I was like, just because they closed the department doesn't mean that you're not going to have to serve those kids. It just means you're not going to have as much money to serve them with.
Yes, the Department of Education, they have until Monday to accept a $25,000 buyout to either retire or, leave. But they have to put it in on Monday.
Yeah.
We have another, I'm just waiting for the email to come out. There's supposed to be another email that comes out today for us federal employees to give our 5 bullets. But it's supposed to be something different than the last one that
The
we
last
received
five,
last
yeah.
Saturday, that we received last Saturday,
Yeah.
last week.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good use for AI insert engines. Just, generate a list of things that sound good that don't mean anything,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah, and so my supervisor, they actually gave us like a list of bullet points to
mhm.
use
Yeah.
because the VA said that we had to turn in ours. There's a lot of other
Yeah.
federal governments that said, no, don't do it. But the VHA said that we needed to. And so they gave us some direction and some guidance on what to say. Um, but it was just kind of like blanket things. It wasn't just like, so
Well, you don't want them to be measurable.
yeah, yeah.
You know, I relate that to when in dissertation writing, when we do our definition of terms in our dissertation, um, they have to be operational
Mm,
definitions. That means that they're either agreed upon or they're measurable. Um, and there's a reason why in dissertation work we want measurable objectives and measurable things. But in a case like that, you would like for them to be broad and generic,
hmm
um, so that you know you can't do a quick and dirty on those because a lot of things are long term. A lot of the work that you do in leadership, I mean, it's going to be a while before you know the outcomes. And so you can't tie yourself in a short term to long term outcomes. That's one of the things in leadership. That's for everybody. That's a lesson for everybody in leadership. Don't tie your short term success to long term outcomes or long term projects. That's why I say for your first leadership role, make sure the first thing you take on is not something that's been a problem forever or is going to take years to resolve or work out. It's early, easy wins, little things that build your credibility as a leader. And so if you're going to put things on a list of, to do that you've done or to do, make sure it's something that it either is vague enough that you can't just say yes or no, or it's easy things that show that you are accomplishing tasks. That's a good lesson in all leadership.
Yeah, it's really scary though, because they canceled like 25 of our contracts that we had
Yeah,
effective immediately, that
yeah,
directly involve education and
right.
educational support for our staff and our providers and, all those things like, disruptive behavior and things like that, like just
Yeah.
done,
One of
effective
my
immediately.
one of my EDLS ladies works for the Department of Defense,
Hmm.
and one of the things she does is grants and contracts for grants, and
Hmm.
not good. Kathleen Dickinson, she was a
Yeah.
school psychologist, and so yeah, she was telling us about that last weekend when we were in Charlotte, that all these contracts are getting canceled.
Yeah.
And so it makes it look like you aren't doing anything. Um, but that's intentional, as you
Hmm.
know. So good morning, everybody. Um, Tough times
Good morning.
in education at all levels, governmental, local, statewide. Tough times in education right now. But I reminded my EDLS folks last weekend, if things were easy, they wouldn't need us in leadership. And that's when we emerge. That's when we move to the top. So that's not much solace, but that's what we do. We're problem solvers. That's what we do in leadership. Let me share my screen and let's get started this morning. Now, do we have some people that I know Jeff's got to leave early? Who else has to leave early today? Tim has to leave early today. Tim, what time do you have to go?
I gotta be gone by 10.
All right. And Jeff, you got to be gone by 10:30. And Tawanda, when have you got to be gone?
I don't have to be gone, Dr. Lamb, but I have a contract in my house, retail in my bathroom, so I'll be in and out
Okay.
addressing needs
All
as
right.
needed. So I'll be on and I'll be here, but I might have to disappear for a minute or two.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good. Tim, we'll let you go first. Let's do our normal look back at where we are. Let me pull up our weekly schedule. All right, we're at Saturday, March 1st. We're doing our fellowship presentation today. I'm still with you, but let me turn my video off so my signal will stabilize this morning. Today, you were to do the fellowship project, and again, it's a written document, 3 to 5 pages. You can upload that or your presentation. Again, I don't worry so much about our video presentations in that our job is not entertainment. I'm not interested in PowerPoints. I'm interested in what you know. So if you'll look at the rubric, these materials were under assignments. If you'll look at the rubric, you see distinguish over here. It doesn't say anything about a presentation. Clearly addresses the assignment. Well organized. Information taken from sources, interpreted, evaluated. Synthesizes in-depth information, organizes and synthesizes to reveal insightful patterns, differences. I don't care about the format that you have. One of the things that we've got to get out of in leadership that really in this century has come to predominate is this notion of entertainment. We don't do entertainment. We do information. We do communication. We don't do entertainment. All these softwares, PowerPoint, Canva, Prezi, all that, while it's all well and good, many times students think what that looks like is more important than what it says. It does not. That's not what leadership is. We have to focus on what leaders do, insightful insightfully discusses in detail relevant supporting limitations, integrates alternative, diverse, or contradictory perspectives, makes a conclusion, reflects students' informed evaluation, ability to place evidence and perspectives discussed in priority order. It's about the information and the communication that you can do, folks. It's not about, I don't need to be entertained. My group last weekend, one of the things that I was disappointed in them is I went through their presentations on Saturday, and then I saw the same things again on Sunday, and I said, well, didn't we go over the, well, we already had this presentation completed. What do you mean you already had it done? When you were told that this wasn't what was important, why didn't you go back and change it? Well, we already had it done. No, you didn't have it done if it wasn't right. That's the thing about leadership. It's not done if it's not right. We get the job done, period. If we have to go back and revisit things, and that's what we have to do. But we need to communicate clearly and inform clearly. That's our purpose. Now, if you use one of these platforms to do that, that's fine. But it's more important what you say than what it looked like. We got to get out of that notion. We've got too many folks who think leadership is about how nice they can make a presentation. We can hire people to do that. We can hire people with a 2-year community college degree in graphics to make some of the most astounding stuff you've ever seen, but it doesn't say anything. You got to get out of that notion of what it looks like is more important than what it says. That is not leadership. So this was the rubric for today, what we were looking for. This was the task, the fellowship project, and you had and for those of you, if you didn't know what followership was, we had a document that explained it in depth. This was the reference. All right. And now the last thing this morning before we dive in with Tim is again, where we are. We'll be online again for case study 2 presentation 2 weeks from today. Now, case study 2 can either be the case study from Anderson that you pick, or it can be the second one from Northhouse. Again, I've got the Northhouse book in here so you can look at all of those. That's your choice, what you'd like to present. It gives us some diversity when instead of hearing the same one all on Saturday. And then after that, March 15th meeting online, our next time together will be April 5th and 6th in Charlotte. Again, that Saturday is makeup day. If you've missed a presentation, if you've missed something that you would turn in, that will be your day I'll give you some of my time that day. And then we'll have our normal presentations on Sunday. And then we have a Saturday Zoom session on April 26th where you present your professional development leadership plan. So that's our schedule. You're to keep up with all these assignments, turn them into your shell and Blackboard. As you know, at this stage in your development, it's about acquiring information. The first 3 courses /4 are about gathering information. We'll do a lot more interactive things later on in courses, but what we call the first 3 courses the core, where you have to gain a perspective on leadership in organizations. And it's just like, if you want to be a good musician, you got to practice, you got to work. This is the working part of it. It's not as fun as some of the things later on, and is not as informative, especially for your dissertation, but this is about how you go about acquiring knowledge. This supports your literature review. You must be a knowledgeable person. That's what this is about. That's why we have all these, reading these books, doing these projects. It's about information acquisition right now. And so, the more you can read, the more information you can gather, the better off you will be. All right. I think we've we're clear on what our assignment is today, I'm going to stop my share and I'll turn my camera off and we'll let Tim, he'll lead us off today, then Jeff, and then we'll work Beverly in as we can go, and Tywanda. All right, so let me stop my share, turn my camera off, and Tim, I'll let you share your screen and get started this morning.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. As always, Dr. Lane, you make it really hard to follow up. Now I'm shaking in my boots about, did I even do what he asked me to do? But it's okay. I'm gonna figure this out. All right, let me pull up my screen for a second. All right, everybody can see that perfectly fine. I got some head nods.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so this is the follow-up interview and recommendations that we did for this past 2 weeks for our class today. And so we'll just jump right into it. Okay, so quick overview. My goal today is to do the interview highlights. So what was the interview about? Then we'll talk about the staffing structure. That'll be important when we get to like findings, recommendation, just to understand overall what the structure of their team looks like, and then kind of how does that flow as far as how information is shared, delegation of tasks, things like that. Findings, obviously, what did I find? So after you get the interview, synthesize it, look at the literature that I use, as well as just thinking about just practical experience. What were the findings that I had that leads to the recommendations, what they should do moving forward, and then just a reflection on a personal stance of like, how does this interview reflect how I look at followership? It's also a very favorite topic of mine. So if I seem to geek out during my presentation, it's because I talk about this a lot with both my students and other agencies that I'm part of when it comes to leadership development. So, yeah. Okay. So what I did was for me, one thing I learned from Dr. Lim that I appreciate was, hey, don't put a whole lot on the slide. And so find ways to present information that is both catchy, but also shows that you know knowledge. And it's just easy to remember. So in the interview, I did an assistant vice president of a Division I and Research One institution. If you have no idea what that means, basically Division I looks at both sports and academia of how they're placed, and then Research One is the level of research that their faculty is doing, and what kind of funding is presented there. Is it leading research? Are they a one-on-one who is doing a certain type of study? That's all that means, but that's important in the sense of just knowing like he's at a very big school. So the AVP that I interview is a very large institution. And so structure-wise, there's a lot of people in play when it comes to the breakdown of their staffing structure. So when I asked them, hey, what is your philosophy, viewpoint, structure, working definition around what followership is? This is a piece of a quote that he gave me, which was, it's an opportunity to make the job easier for those who they serve, which I thought was amazing. Again, as somebody who loves followership, I just appreciated that working definition. But more importantly, did a bigger deep dive into what that looks like. So his background in the way that he typically leads, which is important that I say typically, is because it has changed now since being in this role, is that he's from a servant leadership standpoint. So when we think about what followership is, this idea that his jobs make it easier for the people that he serves, it's kind of like servant leadership mind, meaning that what I do is supposed to serve the people that I'm either working with, for, or helping with. And I thought that was just amazing. So my square over here with these random numbers and symbols, you all are probably like, Tim, what's going on? Great question. So the 7 is his direct reports. So when we interviewed us, I asked him about staffing structure, like, hey, like how does this work as far as your working definition of what leadership looks like? He says, well, I have 7 direct reports that work with me in 7 different functional areas, which I'll talk about in a second. But in those 7 functional areas, there's 90 plus staffing employees, and that breaks down into a multitude of professional staff, graduate and student staff. So it's a lot of people that he is managing. This -2 is what it refers to as here are the people who are causing problems. So that's important when we get to staffing structure and recommendations in the sense of why you have 7 direct reports. 2 of those 7 are causing some issues within the team. And then this less than 10 piece here is looking at the fact that he's only been in this role for less than 10 months. And so my thought recommendations for what I reference across different literature, it was important for me to recognize that, hey, he's not been in this role very long. So what do you do? How does that work into the way that you are trying to build camaraderie around this team? How do we look at authentic leadership? What is the basis around basic human need? A lot of things that I learned in literature. And so this was important for me to recognize. Okay, so staffing structure. So again, he's the AVP at a big D1 R1 institution. And so here are the areas that fall under his umbrella as far as his portfolio. So fraternity sorority life, or FSL, service learning and civic engagement, career services, first generation student services, marketing and communication, information technology. And then this is one that I hadn't heard this term used as I was in the field, so that was really cool. But it's student activation, which is the same thing as student activities or student involvement and engagement. And so among these 7 functional areas, it's divided between the 90 plus staff folks that are on his team to make sure these are all carried out. Why this is important, because when we think about what's related back into the Rosenbach journal or article, is looking at the fact that you have these 7 kind of functional areas. So he disseminates tasks and how he is giving out information to these folks. This is the areas that they're going to. Now, beyond that, then these folks in these various areas, so these 7 different reports, are they having to take that same philosophy around followership, what it looks like to move tasks along, then follows down to their staffing structure. And so for me, thinking about, okay, when I think about recommendations, how does this roll out based on your functional area? Knowing that this is having to go down to this many people, that's a large task in hand to be able to do. But beyond that, I think it's really important to think about too. How do you, excuse me, how are you presenting this information in a way that is tangible enough to then relate it back to the staff that is present? And so for me, this just kind of helps. So hopefully continue to think about this structure as I kind of go forward presentation wise, as I talk about things moving forward.
All right.
So
before we go any further right there, go back to that slide.
Yeah.
All right. This was from an organizational perspective. It's important to understand that structure that Tim has on that screen. I love that, Tim. This is what's known in the business as a rational bureaucracy. Now, what that means is that assistant vice president works directly with the leader of each of those 7 groups. And those people work directly with the people under them. That's a hierarchical structure called a rational bureaucracy. Now, people think bureaucracy is bad. No, bureaucracy is neither good nor bad. It just speaks to the structure of chain of command. It's hierarchical as opposed to being flat. So that assistant vice president is most interested, as he pointed out, in those 7 people that are in charge of those 7 divisions, because they're his direct reports. Now, there are people under them, but from a leadership perspective, this assistant vice president is most interested in leading those 7 people in those direct categories. That's important for us to understand, that in a rational bureaucracy, we don't try to micromanage those people inside of those different silos. We're most interested in leading the 7 people in charge of them, and then they lead the people inside of them. That's the way it works, kind of like a pyramid scheme, multi-level marketing. You can look at it from that perspective. But it's important to know, as Tim pointed out, before you go any further, what is the structure of the organization that you're trying to lead within? That's very important. And Tim has pointed out the structure this morning. I love that, Tim. That tells us a lot later on. Very good.
Thank you so much. Okay. So when we think about the traffic structure moving forward, so overall, like findings, overall, I think his team is really, really strong, especially being in this role less than 10 months. And so I was trying to, again, visualization for me is key with the one presentation. What's a way that people can take what information that it's not much on the screen, but it has a lot of value. And so I thought about like the balance of his team because he referenced a lot that he felt like his team is really balanced skill wise as far as those seven functional areas of his direct reports. And so I was like, okay, I think type of like scaling system kind of worked. But he mentions, which I find super interesting, so that -2, the term that he used was he felt like those two people in those direct reports are very cancerous towards the team. And I was like, hey, can you clarify what you mean by cancerous? Because that's a very strong term to use as far as people on your team. He's like, yeah. He's like, well, one of the folks on my team, they have a whole lot of potential, but they self-sabotage at every moment. And so they always land at this weird intersection. It's like, they have potential, but they self-sabotage. And so this idea that they're never going to be able to progress forward because they're in this mental state of like stagnation. And I thought that was incredible just to see them outwardly process what they feel about the team and these two people. And so look at the scale. The things I thought were positive were the team values, the skill sets, and the humanistic approach that he mentioned a lot. And again, going back to the literature that I use, one of the things I saw was this idea of this basic human needs that people need to be successful within the role for followership. If what you're telling me matches also with I would do outside of work, then it's much easier for these things to be compartmentalized within the workplace. And so for his team values, they all understand like, hey, I have to do my part of the puzzle in order for us to achieve success within the team. And then skill set wise, he mentioned that again, the five that are really strong of the seven, all understand what their area needs to do. And so a good example that he used was his director for information technology loves to talk about coding, website design, and data retrieval because that's their area. He's like, hey, that's not something that I am excited about, but if that makes the person jazz and I can find little nuggets here and there that help me provide feedback for them to continue to feel excited about their work, then this adds value to their skill set. And then the humanistic approach was it's important for me to know the person outside of their everyday operations. Who are you to the core as a person? So I think for that, that's what kind of helps the scale at least tip more favorably in the direction of positive. Now, on the negative side is this lack of drive, selfish pushback, and imposter syndrome. And so the lack of drive, again, those two cancerous folks on the team just not buying in for everyone else. This selfish pushback is looking at the fact that they are doing things that are either for selfish intent. So I'm only going to do the things you're asking me to do because it helps me moving forward, and or I'm going to complain about what's going on because I don't want to do it and it doesn't benefit me directly. And so what that does is people on the team go, well, why aren't they having to do it? And why aren't you not holding them to the same standard based on whatever notion? Last thing I thought that was something that I think like, oh, this is a good area of improvement when we look at recommendations was this imposter syndrome because he's only been in his AVP role 10 months, but he's been at the institution for the last 4 years. And so this is a recent appointment and development for him being in this assistant vice president role, which for me is like, oh, okay. And something that he mentioned a lot in our interview was there is a peer who is a AVP right now, but they're a two-time vice president. And so you think about staffing structure in the way that Dr. Lamb just explained and overall organizational structure. When you've been in a higher role somewhere else and you decide, hey, I'm just going to come back and do this thing just as a way of, giving back and helping that new level of professional to grow. I've been a vice president twice, and so I'm taking this AVP role not because I need it, just mainly because I don't want to sit at home. But I also have a lot of working knowledge about how structurally this works. Something also that was interesting to point out too was that the president of the institution is very big on positional leadership. So when they look at how they want to communicate information, get feedback, and data retrieval, they are very big on what is your title. If your title doesn't match what I need, I'm not coming to you. And so I think that's very important to think about what followership looks like from what his uh, university president sits in their philosophy around how they look at leadership being positional versus him right now looking at it being servant leadership. And so those are two vastly different dynamics when you think about
Right.
how to move things forward.
So what you're talking is that your president's very much into the rational bureaucracy, chain
Yep.
of command.
Mhm.
It's important. Again, you got to know how your university or your organizational structure is set up. Most universities are set up, especially D1, R1. Now, for those of you who don't know, D1 is your level of athletics. That's the top level. And R1 is your R1 research institution. Um, that tells us that they're going to be rational bureaucracies. There's levels. And again, as Tim just pointed out, the quality of your information is tied to your position or in that chain of command. It's not based on expertise, it's based on position. You've got to understand that. And that's why it's important that you understand in the organizational structure that you work with those 7 people. They work with the people below them. We don't skip over people in a rational bureaucracy. There is no going around the chain of command. That is the way that information flows. So you can't be a micromanager with somebody in one of those departments like student activities, student services. You can't be micromanaging. You work with the person that's in charge of that, and they may work with 2 or 3 others. Now you say, well, that's not a very efficient way. Well, the idea here is not efficiency. That's not the idea of a rational bureaucracy. It's order rather than chaos. Um, and usually organizations that don't make a product, that have a production quota, this is the way that they run, where position is prized over expertise or authority. Many academic institutions operate this way. There are others that do as well, but most academic institutions operate in a chain of command rational bureaucracy. You got to understand that. If you don't, you will not survive. It's very simple. Back to Tim.
Okay. So what are my findings leading to? So recommendations wise, this is what I thought about that could be helpful for his team. Again, the AVP has only been in the role for 10 months, less than 10 months. I think he started the role in July of last year. And so again, we look at just length of time. I picked the number 10. I'm like, usually around the 10th month, at that point, people are like, all right, you've been here for almost a year now. You at least know how we work, position-wise, when we work at college. And so for me, looking at the Rosenbach article, for me, was important is thinking about, okay, even his role, I think there is something that can be done. So for him, the partner piece was important for me because, as way is defined in the article, this is a person that emulates what is happening from the direct supervisor. And there's some level of like, hey, I think you could go to the next level. We have same viewpoints, we share the same values, we understand our expectations amongst each other. We know just all the things that are needed. So for me, partner, and then I put in parentheses up. And so understand like he's got to make a lot of connections with the other vice presidents that are there above him across divisions, as well as laterally looking at other AVPs and other functional areas and saying, hey, how can we work together to do these things? And also, I need advocates on the floor when things need to happen in my various areas based upon my working style. For him, a question that I asked, which was on the fly, but it gave a lot of insight. I said, hey, currently in this role, do you feel like you're practicing more followership or leadership based upon your definition of servant leadership? And he goes, well, for the first time, I'm actually having to be the leader. And that's a hard transition for me because it's always great to have somebody you kind of fall back on and go, hey, what's kind of next steps? I'm now the fallback person. And so that's kind of shifted in how I look at how we collaborate versus what directives are. So there are moments where I give guidance and there's moments where I have to give directives. And so I think for me, partnering for him would be really great in this role, especially because he's still new. So there's still that area and level of like, hey, I don't know what I don't know based upon this. And so I'm also battling imposter syndrome. So I need to partner up and kind of figure out like, hey, who do I need to be advocates? For the 5 direct reports who are doing really well. So he feels like, again, something I didn't notate earlier that I should have said was his team, 95% of the team, he's had a chance to handpick over the 5 years that he's been there. And so when he's promoted to the AVP role, he already knew the folks he's working with because he's an internal hire, which is great for him. And so these 5 direct reports, they were at one point peers, and now they're people who report to him. that transition for him has been pretty easy because they understand his style of leadership. And so for them, I think right now, because again, we're still the 10 months role, you've seen them as peers. Now you're seeing them as direct reports. Is to understand that they are contributors and politicians. I think right now it's too early to call that these folks need to be able to apply for a next level position or be able to move up or consider them a partner, mainly because right now you still need boots on the ground. No pun intended, but you need boots on the ground. And so the main contributors, hey, what can you do to overall success of the team? What are you able to advocate for in other areas? When I can't be there, the idea that he had about balancing life and work, not work-life balance, because that doesn't exist, but there are points in time where, hey, I need to step away from the institution to handle personal things. And can I count on you to show up in the spaces that are needed? Going back to Dr. Lynn's point about the organizational leadership, understanding the rational structure of, hey, if I can't be here, who is the next knowledgeable person based upon the area that can still provide information that is needed? And a real example that he used was they were going through their admission numbers. And so the information technology person who does data retrieval was able to step in his apps and say, hey, based on the numbers that we were able to run in data, here is where we landed. So this, I print this up because it's a fluid approach that they'll kind of operate kind of in both areas of the contributor and politicians. Lastly, the thing that I looked at was the two folks who decided to label as cancerous toward the team, so the cancer of the team, being subordinates. And the way that I interpret that information based on the article was, here are the folks we have to give very clear directions, low level expectations, and just here's some foundational knowledge of how you to succeed. What is important is if these two folks cannot do those basic needs of survival for the team, it's easy documentation for him to say, hey, I think it's time to consider some other career options, or as I love to label it, Coco, considering other career options. And so for him, he notated that there was already one person who, in this cancerous duo, who's already put in their resignation because they recognize that they are no longer helpful for the team. And so at this point, his direction was, hey, just make sure that transition wise, everything that we need to be successful is in documents that we can access. And so I thought that was really important. So, personal reflection for this assignment. Here's some similarities that I realized between me and the AVP. And I think what's important to notate too for me in the similarities is that I've known him prior to getting to his AVP role and even the institution that he's currently at. So we've been friends in the field for probably the last 7 to 8 years. And so it was really great to kind of see like his growth over the field versus mine just where we are. Similarity wise, we're both new to our roles. So we've both been in our roles for less than a year. I thought it was something that's interesting to notate. Style wise, I have the same philosophy around followership that it's very much a service role. I think followers are, I think they're even more important than the leader because you can't lead if nobody's following you. And then working definition wise of what leadership is, again, going back to this leadership point, understanding too that there has to be this give and go of positive reinforcement along with positive, well, feedback, not positive, just feedback in general around what you can and cannot do within your role. Difference wise, though, is the nature of the role. He has 7 direct reports that are also professional staff members that have 1 to 2 degrees and have been in the field for at least 10 plus years. Versus for me, my entire staff is nothing but students. And so when I think about what it would look like to give certain feedback, that looks vastly different when you're dealing with an 18 to 22-year-old who this may be their first job ever. Versus in his role, these people who are competent enough to know, hey, this is what I need for certain information. Staffing wise, again, 7 professional staff. For me, it's 39 students. Following the thing that the following for me is different because when I'm looking at how to provide feedback for my students who are the followers for my group, it's different in how I have to just disseminate information for them. And so when we look at this human basic need, right now, my students are working because they're trying to fulfill a financial gap. They're not working right now necessarily because it's part of their career, it's their aspirations to work as students. Like that's not what they're doing. They're there because it helps fill a financial gap for them. Because I work in an institution where I have a lot of students who are Pell Grant eligible. If you don't know what that means, basically, their families do not make enough to support them financially to go all the way through college in various sectors, whether that is from getting their books, feeding themselves every day, buying clothes to afford their classes, a laptop, those different things. And so for me, the ways I have to figure out what motivation looks like for my team just look vastly different. And I think for me, that's just a interesting struggle that I have. But I also wear as a writer privilege because I'm like, hey, I'm now in a position where I can affect change. The other difference too is that in my role, I do not have to lead as much in the sense of the professional types I work with, I serve them. So when people come into Student Center and say, "Hey, Mr. Johnson, can I have this space X day for this many people?" I'm taking directive from somebody else of what they need and just providing a service. So my decision making looks vastly different in terms of I'm just looking at tables, chairs, pricing, and contractual versus philosophy, right? How do we move forward theologically of how making the student center better? Because my role is so new, I'm the first one to do it, and I'm at an institution where I understand that financially we don't always have the means in order to make things happen. So those are the differences that I took away from this assignment. Okay. Any questions that I can answer?
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Let me share my screen right quick. I've got 2 points and well, I've got 3. All right. One of the things that I would make sure that as the leader, in terms of my direct reports, I would classify them into one of these follower styles. That would be the first task that I would do if I were new. Again, we're talking about new here. Now, I always say you're only new till lunchtime the first day. After that, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. But Tim has pointed out when you're new in a role, things are different. So one of the things that you have to do when you're new in the role for your direct reports is classify them into one of these follower styles, and that will give you a clue as to how you will work with them. And so are they a partner? Are they a politician? Are they a contributor? Or are they a subordinate? And that will help you in dealing with them. This notion that we treat everybody the same, no, we treat everybody equitably. We don't treat everybody the same. We have to look at their characteristics, and it's very important that we classify our followers in one of these styles so that we'll know what their motivations are and how we deal with them. The partner is what we're looking for, and we're not, and we need to be wary of the subordinate. But we need to kind of figure out how to move them all to the partner. That servant leadership is to move them all to the partner level. That's the whole idea. You facilitate them and move them through kind of the stages here. And that's what servant leadership does. And so the other thing that I hit my 2 points, the last point before we move on to Jeff is be careful of the notion of potential. Tim was very clear in talking about that early in his presentation. Potential means that you see something in them that says they can do the job, but that means they aren't doing the job. That's what potential means. That means it's not been fulfilled. It's not been realized. And one of the things that you can't do is continue to keep people and work with people who all you ever see is potential and not the results. At some point, potential is not enough. Let me say that again. At some point, potential is not enough. We must have outcomes. We must meet goals and objectives. Simply having the ability, either skill wise or soft skill wise, either content knowledge or ability to collaborate and work with others. Those are our 2 skills that we're most interested in. Do you have content knowledge? And do you have the ability to work and communicate with others? Those soft skills that we call them, your dispositional behaviors, empathy, emotional intelligence, all those kinds of things. You have to be able to have both of those. That's what the partner is, and that's what it describes here. And so when we talk about potential, it means they have one or both of those, but they aren't utilizing them. Just because they have them doesn't mean that they'll ever get to the point that they will use them. At some point, potential becomes a negative rather than a positive. And you have to understand that even though they might have the requisite things that they need, if they're not bringing them to the fore, if they're not adding them to the organization, then you have to make a decision on those people. Um, you know, you know, look for something else for them to do. All right, Tim, you have a question?
That's a question about the part about potential, something that I want to just reference. He gave a really good quote around that, and I put it in my paper, but he basically said, when you mix potential with stubbornness, you land at the intersection of frustration and stagnation.
That's exactly right. Just potential generally means you have both of these, but something is keeping it from working and making this person a good follower, a good employee. There's some factor that's preventing the success that you need from them, the outcomes that you need from them. That's exactly it. There's something else out there that's preventing them from being successful. Potential means that they have the skill and the soft skills and the hard skills, but they're not. It's not being reflected in the outcomes. Something is preventing that from happening. You mentioned self-sabotaging, and that's generally imposter syndrome. Something is preventing the skills from coming to the top and getting the performance that you need. If you can't identify that, if you can't address that with these people, then all they're ever going to have is potential. They're never going to they're never going to reach what we expect. We're never going to get the outcomes that we need. We're never going to get the outcomes we need. I could tickle hanging out with basketball people. They'll tell you all the time, you can't teach tall. I mean, you've either got that or you don't. But just because you're tall and you're athletic, if you can't convert that into outcomes, that's the physical manifestation of what we're talking about this morning. You could be tall and athletic, but if you can't score in basketball or if you can't defend in basketball, I mean, what is preventing that from happening? We're only interested in the outcome. There are no moral victories. We're only interested in the outcomes. That's what leadership is about getting the outcomes that we desire. Through whatever means necessary. And so tall and athletic, if it doesn't translate on the court, then at some point somebody else has to play. That's easy sports metaphor this morning. I'll stop my share. Jeff, we'll move on to you.
Dr. Lamb, you can leave it up there because I'm gonna use the followership, the 4 parts of followership, high and low.
All right.
You want to just leave that there.
I'll do it.
And I'm going to be a little unorthodox this morning. I don't want to necessarily present a screen of a PowerPoint or anything like that. I did my paper on it, and therefore I just want some interaction with you guys. Are you guys open to that?
Yes, I love it.
Awesome.
Love
so if you
it,
got a
love
sheet
it,
of
love
paper, if you got a sheet of paper, go ahead and just copy that square down real quick.
Okay.
Those boxes there. And so as you're doing that, my paper I did an interview on Dr. Kevin Robinson. He is a VP of sales in the Lineage company. Lineage is a food cold storage company. They are global. They have hundreds of locations around the world, and they're buying up small mom and pops all over the nation right now because they're growing their network. But Dr. Kevin Robinson is the VP of sales, as I said. And what's interesting about Dr. Robinson is that he actually started at the lowest level in this organization as a forklift driver. And he is now the VP of the Eastern region of sales. And what I find interesting about his interview, and Tim actually, he did an amazing job, Tim, but he actually highlighted how sometimes when we understand the organization, essentially it's up to us to follow through on each aspect of that position. And that's what Dr. Lamb was referring to as the rational bureaucracy, right? There's things that must happen
Mhm.
in that role, regardless of who the president is, who the VP is. And so I have a couple of questions I want to ask you as you look at this matrix is what is followership not? What is it not? And just write down what you think followership is not. And so I think sometimes as you write that down, I think sometimes we think followership is this idea of servitude, essentially being, go grab my coffee, or, I need some donuts. Or if you're a TA like I was when I first started in education, well, actually I was a custodian, but it's constantly um, running errands, right? So what do you think fellowship is not? And so anybody can chime in. Just give me one of those things you think fellowship is not.
I can tell you what I wrote, Jeff. I put fellowship is not following a leader, a vision, or an organizational goal.
Okay.
All right.
I believe fellowship is not being subordinate.
Jeff, I said followership is not conforming to the influence of whoever is in charge.
All right, Jeff, I said followership is not being disconnected from outcomes, where you basically say, not my problem.
Mm. Okay. So we're gonna challenge our ideology this morning, because now what I want you to do is I want you to think of the role that you're currently in right now. And I want you to look at the four squares here and just put your name in one of those four squares. Which one are you actively right now? Do you feel you are a contributor? Do you feel you are being subordinate? And if you look at that PDF that Dr. Lamb has, it gives you a description of each one of those so that you can know. So do you feel like you're a politician now? So that's high. Or do you feel like you're a partner?
I personally currently feel that I'm a subordinate right now. I
Mhm.
just feel like I'm kind of dispensable at this point in time with what's going on right now.
So thank you, Carolyn. And it's frustrating, right? Because a lot of times we always think the subordinate is just a person who is not wanting to do their part, right? But sometimes a subordinate is someone who has been doing their part, but they have no recognition. So they get disinterested in their part. They don't get to express their concerns. They're just, you're told to do it. You try to do it, but then you're disconnected because of, mergers or um, being furloughed or being kicked off of the team or whatever. So sometimes that's the catalyst to moving a collaborative person that collaborative person moves into subordinacy because of that disconnection. But I'm going to challenge, and even in this project, my own ideology and thoughts were challenged because followership is the ability of that person to do the task wherever they are in the organization. And Dr. Lamb mentioned the rational bureaucracy of there is no emotion, right? We're not talking about emotions and friendships and going out to cookouts and stuff like that. We're talking about what is the job and how do we get it done?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that chain of command that we all have to follow, right? So when I started talking to Dr. Kevin Robinson and understanding that this person started driving pallets around the warehouse and he worked his way up to vice president of sales. This individual understands how the organization is structured and how this organization is ran. And so when I asked him the question, so in that bottom left corner, when I asked him that question about subordinates, I asked him what is the most important thing that we could do when we have subordinates in our organization. And he stated that the most important or proactive thing that you can do is engage. A lot of times we don't want to engage those people who, when subordinates are negative minded or they feel like they have an agenda or they're on a silo, we don't necessarily want to engage them, right? We just want to give them a shovel, as they say, and let them dig a hole for themselves. But he says that subordinates need to be engaged and then take initiatives, right? And assume ownership of their responsibility. And then by fostering a culture of collaboration, the subordinate followers, some of them, not all, we're never going to get all of them, but some of them will become actively engaged in the decision-making process. So how do we move subordinates to the collaborative side? Is that we engage them and try to support them and understand what their issue is in an organization. Okay? And so did anybody say that right now they feel like they are a contributor? Naaman? Okay, cool. Naaman, how do you feel you are a contributor?
Like, I'm a high performer. I have a good reputation within my organization, but I do find myself less engaged in some of the conversations that, I feel like a partner would have within the organization. Um, I guess I'm still kind of getting to that comfort level of being able to express freely within that group, but when it comes to performance, I feel like I'll shine.
Okay.
I
So
feel
you
that
feel
I'm a
like,
contributor too.
awesome. Thank you, Beverly. So you guys feel like your skills are noticed and they're being shared amongst the group.
Yes.
Okay. So Dr. Kevin Robinson, he also mentioned that contributors are likely to share their skills and ideas, but necessarily don't hold a formal leadership role. Like you might not be the principal, or you might not be the VP, or you might not be the provost or anything like that, right? But
Accurate.
right, so within the context of what you do for the organization, you have skills, but you're not necessarily leading a large group of people.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the way that Dr. Kevin Robinson discussed this was followers feel valued and empowered to take risk and innovate. They align their purpose with the organizational goals. Well, isn't that amazing? Right? They align their purpose with the organizational goals. And I think that's a part that's missing in the contributor mindset, is that you have skills, right? You're looking at outcomes, but are you aligning your personal goals with the goals of the organization? How do you see yourself? Because that's going to push us to the partner, those higher levels, right? That's going to push us into the partner role and the politician role. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm a principal. You guys know that already. Dr. Lamb picks on me all the time. It's okay, Dr. Lamb. But I feel like I am a partner. So let's talk about that. Can you go to that one, Dr. Lamb? So the partner role is one where we're moving out of just having skills and influence, but we're now taking an active, high engagement role in that organization. And so Dr. Kevin Robinson, he talked about how that the partner role is more of a big picture role. So he's a VP of sales. He has general managers under him. And so all of that is trickling down. There's that rational bureaucracy again. All of that is trickling down to the customer, right? And so Dr. Robinson's approach to followership aligns with the partner role of Rossenbach. He says that he encourages employees to engage in meaningful dialogue, challenging ideas when necessary, taking ownership of their contributions, right? And so when we are actively engaged, so we're actually making decisions now based upon the direction that the organization needs to go. So Dr. Lamb is a good example of this because Dr. Lamb, you probably feel like you're a partner.
Yes.
So Dr. Lamb, he is in charge of the department. And I think you said you were like 60, you got 60 groups or 60 boards that you're on or something like that, which is, I don't know how you have time to sleep, sir.
No, I don't. I don't sleep.
So so he's in a leadership role, but he's also a follower, right? He's got multiple things. So he gets to look at the vision of Garner Webb, but then also make suggestions based upon that departmental goal or the university goal. And so he's a key influencer in those departments because of his longevity, because of his history, and because of his talent. So Dr. Kevin Robinson is able to more actively understand the direction that the organization is going in because look at this. He's had multiple leadership or he's had multiple followership roles in the organization. Okay. So I'm going to close with this. Followership drives the vision. Followership supports the overall organization. And Tim said this earlier, and I'm going to make it a question. What is my part of the puzzle? What is my part of the puzzle? If I am a subordinate, how do I move? How do I get out of being a subordinate? How do I improve in that area? How do I move to be a contributor? I'm sharing skills, but how do I align my passions with the passions of the organization? And then how do I move from contributor to partner? I have the energy, I have the competency. You know, what am I trying to understand more, get involved more with the agenda of the organization? Does anybody feel like they're a politician right now in their organization? I don't think I'm a politician yet. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Any thoughts or questions or anything?
I have a question. Which of these four types? Now it says that everybody doesn't need to be a partner. I mean, everybody, can't have too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Which of
Right.
these four types is the most harmful to the organization? Now, when I ask this question, let's look at it from again from a rational bureaucracy. Um, let's do a school or a college, a healthcare system, not a manufacturing environment. We got to understand manufacturing's a different animal, different beast. But in nonprofit, for impact organizations, city, county government, colleges, schools, which of these is the most harmful to the organization?
In my opinion, it would be the politician.
There you go.
Agreed. Mhm.
There you go. They're in everybody's business. They're all, they're the gossip people, and they never focus on outcomes. And that's not a follower. I mean, every organization has to be focused on outcomes, core competency, what your out, you won't stay in business just because you've always stayed in business. That's not true. There is no business too big to fail. And so politicians, the people that have skills but use them to feather their own nest, their own political ambitions, their own ease, comfort, they are exactly opposite of what you need in organizations, people that are focused on outcomes. If you can't maintain that focused on outcomes, then you can't be any kind of follower or any value to the organization. So from my perspective, the politician is the most dangerous of these, and the ones that we either have to get them to move into the partner role where they then take on outcomes, responsibilities, or we have to move them out. You can't have politicians in your organization, not in a rational bureaucracy. You won't survive.
I think that line there, Dr. Lamb, where it says that this is a particular problem when others rely on them for job performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If in your mind, if you feel, if the politician is that hierarchy mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
That person up there doesn't understand the organizational structure, doesn't understand, top-down management. They create a huge problem for the entire organization.
Yes.
Even, and I'm not saying this to be political, but even in the presidency, you don't understand the three forms of government. You don't understand that all three forms balance the entire country, right? There has to be a balance. We talked about this in social studies all the time. There has to be a balance of power. And you don't understand that, you create more chaos. But there's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, anyone? Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right. So who do we have next? Let me turn my page here.
Beverly Edwards.
All right.
Okay, so I'm trying to get my stuff right. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Again.
Okay, let me move back then. There you go. Good morning. I had the pleasure of interviewing Durham Public Schools Area Superintendent Dr. Keisha Rogers. She has been an educator for 29 years, bringing extensive background experience in her roles of an elementary school principal, a middle school principal, and an elementary teacher for 6 years. During our conversation, I had an opportunity to hear her insights on followership and its essential role in leadership. Dr. Rogers finds that followership is crucial in leadership, as effective leaders must also be effective followers. In her role as an assistant superintendent in middle school, she recognizes the importance of modeling followership by supporting district level goals, collaborating with teams of principals, and showing respect for their expertise and experiences. She believes that fellowship fosters culture of trust, accountability, and a shared vision. I have a clip for you to see on how she demonstrates followership in her role as a principal. Do we have it's only a 1-minute video. Do we have time, Dr. Lamb, to
Yes,
see
go
the
right
clip?
ahead.
Okay. Let's pray it works.
Zaxby's just out.
Can you hear?
The Philly.
Yes.
With the crispy chicken fingers, sauteed peppers and onions, garlic aioli, and melty cheese.
Although it's summertime, we are all geared up for our students. We're excited about our returning Rogers Rams and our new students. I am Keisha Rogers, the very proud principal of Rogers Middle School. Our goal this year is to become an even better school. So I tell myself all the time, we've gone from good to great. How do we go from being great to even better? We want to make sure that we're providing the best for each and every one of our students every day. So we're so excited and all geared up. This week, our teachers have come in for professional learning. We're focused on differentiation so that we can ensure that we are prepared to meet the whole child. We want to make sure that not only are we focused on our content, but really focusing on the social and developmental aspects of our students' learning as well. An average first day for students includes students getting acclimated to their teams, sharing a little bit about what they've done so far over the summer, getting to know their peers and their teachers getting to know them.
And that was one of many clips that she does when she was a principal on bringing her her teachers along to motivate them as they begin the year. So it's like a fresh start. Here's the goals, here's the expectations. Let's collaborate, let's share ideas as we move forward in the school year. Right here, we have the organizational structure of Durham Public Schools. Dr. Rogers, we have the deputy superintendent, the administrative assistant, and then on the left-hand side, we have the assistant superintendent, principal, and supervisors. And Dr. Rogers is the second to the bottom. Dr. Rogers believes fellowship is to support others and align target goals that meets the district's vision and expectations. The efforts are demonstrated with commitment and communication of effective leaderships and followers, not being afraid to challenge directives, but with being supportive and reflective in growth in the mindset. Even as a principal, she always has seen herself as a leader of leaders, charged to inspire and grow in others. In her current position, she's always seen herself as empowering principals and leading schools while providing guidance and resources aligned with district objectives. Effective followers require listening, adaptability, commitment, and sharing collective goals. For this reason, Dr. Rogers cultivates strong strategies for her principals while implementing these few strategies. Keeping the main thing, growing in every way, building trust and maintaining transparency, empower leadership by encouraging principals to take the initiative, providing numerous opportunities, and never leave things up to chance. Dr. Rogers provides professional development that is tailored to enhance leadership and the capabilities of ongoing reflection. This allows principals to create partnerships, encourage shared decision making that involves guiding and influencing staff, and supporting and contributing to the vision. The two things go hand in hand, Dr. Rogers says. This is a balance. It's achieved by leading districts' initiatives while also listening to the needs and insights of the principal. This dynamic promotes a culture of mutual respect and shared accountability. Dr. Rogers continuously actively seeks feedback through one-on-one meetings, surveys, open-ended question surveys, and forums in her middle school PLCs. This is essential and provides mutual respect and builds relationship among all. Towards the interview, Dr. Rogers began to reflect and provide feedback as she reflect on feedback she receives from her employees to adjust leadership strategies, ensuring relevance and responsiveness. She also collaborates with principals to develop strategic plans and support for her middle school grades. This adaptive approach builds trust in enhancing effective principals initiatives. Dr. Rogers defines fellowship as active support and alignment with district goals. Through commitment, effective communication, and willingness to challenge the status quo. Her perspectives aligns with Rowenbach, I hope I pronounced that correctly, on fellowship styles and types of fellowships. Within her administrative role, Dr. Rogers embodies various fellowship types, ranging from the contributor to the partner, each serving a unique partnership with a unique purpose within her leadership roles. This includes subordinates who adhere to directives, as well as the compliant individual who follows instructions while being encouraged to develop independence and expand beyond their comfort zone. Principals who actively contribute ideas, enhance efficiency, are invited to participate in leadership panels, district strategic planning, and execute tasks. Those in the political role are empowered to serve as advocates, fostering relationships, boosting morale, and ensuring district objectives. According to Rodenbach, fellowship styles play a crucial role in understanding effective leadership. Dr. Rogers' approach incorporates fellowship styles as key themes aligned with goals and district expectations. Based on our conversation, I have identified recommendations to further enhance her leadership effectiveness. The primary suggestion for strengthening Dr. Rogers' professional relationship is actively embracing change. She has principles that are stuck in one way, that are not embracing change. So the challenge is, how do we get them out their comfort zone? So I pose that question to you guys. If you are in a leadership role and you have an employee and they're having a hard time embracing change, what are some key things you would do within your organization?
Well, let's define that a little.
Mm-hmm.
When you say they're having a hard time embracing change,
Yes.
um, when dealing with that, we have to look at two factors.
Mm-hmm.
What is the change?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is the change we're asking them to embrace? Is it a structural? I mean, there's different kinds of changes. Have we changed the performance metrics? Have we changed the goal? I mean, what did we change?
The ch
And,
the
and
change the Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead, Dr. Lamb.
what did we change? And what 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 is the expectation? What was the purpose? What were we trying to change? Why did we make this change? What's the outcome that we weren't getting that this change is supposed to bring about?
Okay.
I mean, when we talk about embracing change, what kind is it? And what wasn't working that we were trying to unfreeze and move, this change is going to move us to? I mean, what are we trying to get to? Now, it can be small changes like, in the daily schedule of a school or something like that, or it can be big things like, a curricular change. It could be a change in staffing. It could be a change in one of the programs, how it's delivered. I mean, all change is not the same. And if we want followers to change, we have to be focused on the outcome, why we need the change. That's the first thing. Very first thing is if you want people to change, you got to convince them that the change, that there is a worthy reason why we're changing, that we could do better, as she said in her video, or we're not meeting a certain standard now or performance metric now. Folks have to see the need for the change, whether it's big or little. They have to see the reason why, other than just because I said so, because I'm in charge. I mean, that's the key to change right there. What kind of change is it? Is it substantive? Is it cosmetic? I mean, but regardless of the reason why, we need to identify, whether it's a big change or a little change, but we have to be able to clearly articulate why we're changing. What aren't we doing that we need to be doing? What performance metrics, what outcomes are out there that we are not achieving that we need to achieve as the rationale for the change? You can't be one of those leaders. I'm changing because I'm in charge now. They used to do it this way, and I'm changing because I'm in charge now. People will not follow that. There's got to be an organizational reason why you're making the change. So what change am I wanting to make? What am I trying to change? That's how I would address people who were what we call in the business recalcitrant, that are avoiding or refusing or hesitant to change. I need to work with them to see why we're doing this. And so change is hard. Change is very hard. And if you've ever changed and you had it right and you changed and got it wrong, boy, that's, that you'll never change again. So people have to see at all levels of the organization, whether it's a big change, but fundamental, or a little change, cosmetic, they have to see why and the need for the change. So that's the way you address people who don't change, who are reluctant to change. You approach it from that standpoint. This is why we need to change. This is the benefit. This is the outcome that we desire. This is why we're changing. Now, if people don't agree with that, that's when you identify the people that don't need to be in your organization if they don't understand what your core competency or your outcome or what our vision is, what we're trying to do here. Let's say in middle school, our sixth grade end of grade test in math is percent passing is about 30, and we make a change in the building, it's easy to say our kids are only scoring 30% proficiency here in math. We need to do something different. I mean, there has to be a reason driving the change. There has to be a rationale, has to be a reason. And it must be legitimate, other than because I said so. And that also tells us what we need to be doing. We need to be doing professional development in math. So that change has to be that change has to be legitimate. It has to be authentic. It has to be driven by outcomes. And if it is, you'll have a better chance. And if those people can see the need and still don't want to do it, those are the people you don't need in your organization. All right. That's my rant. We'll move back to Beverly.
Okay. Dr. Rogers suggests leaders who embrace change not only equip, so she kind of flipped it. If you don't embrace the change, who embrace the change, not only equip their teams to navigate the challenge in unfamiliar territory, but also view it as an opportunity for continuous improvement, ultimately driving successful outcomes. Many leaders are beginning to see this as a focal point in their organization. Edwards, 2021, I read an article as I was comparing and trying to provide recommendations for Dr. Rogers on she's doing such a good job on the outside. What are some other things that she can either improve or make her leadership better? So I grabbed an article. It's called The Impact of Leadership and Followership in Organizational Phenomena. Now, this article demonstrates the essence of what an effective leader is. In being an effective leader, you need followership and how it becomes a vital point of the organization to be successful. It identified three main themes of followership in this article. It's empowering and building relationships was one, maintaining goals through operational leadership, creating a culture of fellowship that embraces change, that fosters the development of strong leaders by encouraging adaptability and collaboration and continuous growth. Edwards also discussed there are essential organizational their fellowship is essential for organizations' success as leadership and followership are connected and must coexist to achieve direct and indirect effectiveness. Fellowship positively influences job satisfaction within an organization by fostering autonomy among followers and enabling them to take initiatives in achieving their goals. I also read another article by Noami Fedoris. It's called The Role of Fellowship on Organizational Citizenship, Behavior in the Service Industry. And they discussed how by fostering autonomy among followers, it takes them to make initiatives with achieving organizational goals, and they identify three main themes regarding the importances. Fellowship and leadership are connected within an organization, maintaining relationships and align leaders and followers to pursue a shared objective. Fellowship enables leadership to integrate ideas and objectives within an organization and following positive behaviors in a collaborative environment. And last but not least, fellowship functions as a collaborative partnership among leaders, facilitating a successful execution of goals. In my research, this highlights that fellowship is a crucial factor in fostering a successful leadership, fellowship relationship, emphasizing that an organization cannot drive or be successful without fellowship. Dr. Rogers' approach in interacting Dr. Rogers' approach and interactions with her employees highlight the significance of fellowship in strategic planning, goal setting, collaborating, and ideas to achieve an objective and organizational objectives. Her skills in delegating department tasks based on her employee strengths exemplifies leadership and talent. It is recommended that she continues to foster relationships and collaborates with her employees to meet the targets and drive success with her team in Durham Public Schools. That ends.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Again, the leader and the follower have to have a shared goal or vision. Especially if we want people to change. But the whole idea is we have to know where we're going. And if we don't have followers, that's not leadership. People have to go with us, but they have to know where we're going. And especially if we're making any kind of a change, they have to know why we're doing that, where we're headed. Why do we need to change? That's very important. Very important. Why do we need to make a change? Where are we going? What's our goal? What are we trying to do here? What's the purpose of this? We're in CAPE right now. That's accreditation for colleges or schools of educations at universities. You have your SACS accreditation for the institution, and then for education, it's CAPE, CAEP. And we're working through this right now. And it's amazing to me to watch, as a member of that, watch the advanced group and the standard group. So you're divided into two groups. You have the advanced group, which is for graduate programs. You have the standard group, which is for undergraduate programs. It's amazing to me to watch the difference in these two groups, as I'm a part of the advanced group, obviously. We meet at 10:45 on Wednesday mornings. We organize our work. Everybody's, out doing their work and going on about their business. The undergraduate group comes in at 12, and they're there the rest of the day. And I'm just like, I don't understand this. But part of the problem with the undergraduate group is they don't have a shared vision. That's why it's so hard and they can't seem to get any traction and get going, is they don't have a shared vision of where they're going. The undergraduate group is not just, the graduate group. We're all in the College of Education. We all have had leadership positions or are in leadership. The undergraduate group are scattered all over the College of Ed and the College of Arts and Sciences, because you've got like PE and social studies and math, the programs that offer teaching degrees, but they aren't housed within the College of Education. And those people don't have the same goals or shared vision. They just show up, why am I having to do this? Rather than we need to do this or what we're trying to do. And so if I were working with them, I think I would have done very early on is I would have sat down and said, this is where we're going. This is why we need to change what we used to do to what we're doing now. Used to, we did it this way, but now it's required that we do it this way. But the bigger picture here is your people need to get a license and teach school. That's our objective. To do that, we have to be CAPE accredited by, the undergraduate program. Here's what we need to do. So they don't seem to have a shared vision. And so to get them to change from SACS, where it's just counting desks and books, to where you actually have to have goals and objectives, student learning outcomes, all rubrics to measure that stuff. They're not on board with that. Now, it's hard work, but I believe I would have started from the beginning is all right, as the leader of that group, let me tell you why we've got to change this, what we've got to do, and here's the steps that we're going to use. But they've not ever got on board with we have to change. I mean, we can't get down into the weeds and do the work because they're still fighting while we're having to do this. Well, but when you go from that level beyond Sachs to Cape, it's a different ball game for accreditation. It's not about just turn your syllabus in and how many students you got. They want outcomes. How many graduated? How many graduated on time? They get down in your business. Well, these people, we don't want to do that. All of a sudden it's going to be, our numbers aren't going to look good. It's not about your numbers. You just got to have a plan on what you're going to do with it because your numbers aren't good. They're not going to get mad at you because your numbers aren't good. The issue is going to be if you don't have a plan to deal with it. But we can't even get any consensus that we ought to do this. And so watching them it's just hard to watch them because they don't have a shared vision. And they're fighting to change every day. Every Wednesday, it's like a knockdown drag out. Now, and no amount of buying them Papa John's pizza. They bring them in Papa John's pizza because they're going to be there all afternoon. No amount of buying Papa John's pizza is going to fix that. Sorry. They don't have a shared vision of where they're going and a reason why they're going there. And so they can't get coalesced and get down the track because they're fighting one another all the time. It's an amazing case study in how, if you don't have a shared vision, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have an objective, that you can't get even smart people with ability, you can't get them mobilized in one direction. I mean, it's a perfect example of it's a textbook case in fellowship or lack thereof. It's amazing to watch. All right, moving on. Thank you, Beverly. Excellent presentation. Who's next? Carolyn, you up?
I'll go if Carolyn's still eating.
Thank you so much, Tawanda.
All right.
All righty. Give me a second. Let's see. Share.
And I'll go after Tawanda, Dr. Lamb.
Yeah.
Then I go out to Carolyn.
All right. Great.
Okay, can everyone see my PowerPoint? I'm trying to move this out the way. Get this out the way. Oh, no, that ain't. Okay. Okay. This is my fellowship program. I think I spoke in the chat to everyone. Good morning, scholars. I'm glad to be here. I've learned so much today. It's like information overload because everyone has done something very unique, and I've just learned so many different things. And like I said, I think in the last presentation, it's just so much you don't think about, and you have to just digest and take it in and keep it moving. So the person I interviewed was Alphine Bradley. She's an assistant principal and our Title I coordinator. She's been in education 30 plus years, and she's only been in leadership 10 years, and she's currently seeking her doctorate of education and leadership right now at the glorious Gardner-Webb University. And we went through the MLS program together, and we decided to take two different routes. I'm doing organizational. She wanted to focus more on curriculum and instruction. All right, I just listed the questions for reference. The first 4 questions were about assessing her understanding of fellowship. And so I asked her to define it, and she said that fellowship was the capacity and willingness to follow a leader and support a leader's vision while actively engaging in the achievement of organizational goals. Now, of course, with her being in this program, she had more of a textbook answer. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of funny. And I was like, oh yeah, you are in the program. So that was her definition. As far as question number 2, I asked her about what qualities did she feel was important or what made effective followers, and she said being proactive, being having critical thinking skills, being adaptable, being collaborative, and committed, or commitment, having commitment. And she said she um, thinks that followers should take ownership of their task. Those are effective leaders, and they can confidently delegate um, within the organization. So those were her effective ones. And I think she kind of inferred that the opposite of those traits were the ineffective leaders. All right. So for her leader followership relationship, um, she said that she felt like um, leaders guide and motivate while followers provide essential feedback and support. And there's an interdependence that shape how tasks are accomplished and how teams navigate challenges together. The fourth question, are followers born or developed? She stated like she do feel like there are some innate qualities, but that followers can be developed by strategies such as mentorship, coaching, providing constructive feedback, um, giving followers competencies, things of that nature. Question 5, I switched up and kind of gave her a situational question. And she talked about a situation where there was a initiative in a school, and there was a teacher who was passionate about student engagement. And so she kind of let her spearhead that project and lead that committee. And she stated that she displayed a strong followership, and she aligned the school's vision with what she was doing in her committee. She was doing a lot of collaboration with colleagues, leading workshops and planning, but she had this passion. I think maybe Jeff talked about the passion, but just the passion she had and drawing in on that strength, she was able to be successful in the leadership and followership process. Number 6 is about supporting the followers' capacity. And she stated that that was really something she kind of really felt passionate about. She said she tried to provide professional development opportunities. She tried to foster an environment where people feel safe. She tried to be transparent. She's always recognizing and celebrating achievements, no matter how big or how small. She encourages ownership and accountability among team members. She tries to create a sense of shared responsibility, and she's always giving regular feedback to enable her followers to see their growth and understand how their contributions are valued. Her response to active followership, she said she strived to maintain an open and supportive dialogue. She's always engaging in constructive discussions where all perspectives are acknowledged. She fosters a culture of respect and innovation. She welcomed input from followers by asking questions and exploring their rationales. She feel like that not only empowers them, but it also builds on that collaborative effort to see that they're all working for the same goal, which is what's best for the students. Fellowship and group dynamics, that's question 8. There was some commentaries. Oh no, I got different questions. I'm sorry. Number 7, responding to okay, adapting her leadership style. question 8, some common challenges. She said that some common challenges that she felt to followership was miscommunication, reluctance to engage, and differing expectations between the leaders and followers, not like a disconnect. Her specific challenge was balancing the need for direction with enabling teachers to feel confident in taking initiatives. She had a problem with encouraging a culture of accountability because she felt like it was a delicate balance because you want to provide guidance, but at the same time, you want them to be accountable and take initiative. So she said she kind of struggled in that area. And I asked her, was there a possible solution? And she said that she felt like if she could promote transparency and maintain open lines of communication, that might help with those challenges that she had. And so part of the assignment was to read 2 additional sources besides the Rosenbach article. And so, of course, not to kind of beat a dead horse about what makes a good follower, but the different types, the subordinates, the contributors, the politicians, the partners, relationship initiative versus performance initiative, and everything, all the practical steps that leaders should do to develop these people into partners. That was the summary of Bach. And when I read Importance of Effective Followers, it basically emphasized the need for followers to demonstrate courage, take responsibility, challenge authority, and actively participate. It explored different followership styles such as the sheep, yes people, alienated, pragmatics, and star followers. And I thought that was funny because when you read the different articles, everybody describing the same people with different words, just different descriptions. And so I thought that was kind of funny. Not really funny. And then reading all of them, it's the same language. In order to be a follower, a leader, you got to have followers, and you can't lead if it was just reinforced. It was just reinforcement. I'll put it that way. It also discussed the qualities of leaders, what leaders should expect from followers, such as a can-do attitude, collaborative approach, personal drive for growth, and passion for driving personal development. It also dove into the need from leaders, including clear goals and directions. Followers need something too, frequent and specific feedback, and coaching to develop their potential. As you and Tim talked about this potential or unrealized potential or realized potential. It highlights the importance of leaders in creating an environment that enables followers to contribute their best, and the role of leaders in guiding, providing guidance, support, and opportunities for growth and development. The followership article talked about different followers as well, based on their level of engagement and critical thinking skills. And it actually had passive, conformist, alienated, pragmatic, and exemplary. This article challenged the misconception that a leader is always a leader and a follower is always a follower. Individuals may switch roles throughout the day, acting as leaders in some situations and followers in others. The article also highlighted the importance of being engaged and active, an active follower who incorporates leadership and traits. So basically, what I really liked about this article, it talked about in order to become a leader, you had to first be a follower, and that both of them are the same skills. So I thought that was like really neat how they summarized that. And so, of course, comparing that, everything I read, interviewing my person, I had to make some recommendations for Ms. Alphine Bradley, and I told my recommendation would be to gain an understanding of the different followers within the school. You had the politician, you had the partner, you had the subordinate, you had the contributor. Because if you understand those people, then you can tailor her leadership approach to engage and motivate the staff, because she should be working on developing and nurturing her followers into partners. And then at that juncture, foster a culture of partnership within the school. So if you understand who you're working with, each person's where they are within that paradigm, then she'll be more successful with increasing her followership capacity. My reflection, the academic research and the practical leadership experience. I thought it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. And as much as I enjoyed this project, even today, just listening how everybody had a different spin, but the practicality of merging the academic research and the information from a practical leadership experience was really nice. I saw the theoretical concepts in real world situations. And of course, reading the 3 articles deepened my understanding, and everything really reinforced my understanding or reinforced my recommendation. And moving forward, I'll just continue to learn more, apply, and take all these things in consideration as I move into a leadership role. And
Thank you.
I'm done.
Excellent. I want to make 2 points, and they're continuations of points we've already made this morning. Our job as leaders is to help our followers turn their potential into accomplishment. And that's what Tawanda was talking about there is we have to professionally develop these people and move them across the continuum. We've got to turn potential into accomplishment. If all they ever have is potential and not accomplishment, then we're not going to meet our outcomes. Now, when we say we want our employees to be accountable and take initiative, got to be careful with that. We got to be very, very careful with that, be accountable and take initiative. We got to have them be accountable for outcomes. We can't just say, well, be accountable, show up where you're supposed to be. That's not accountability. That's just punctuality. Are they there? Are they here? Well, yeah, then they met. No. Were they working on the outcome? Were they doing something organizationally? I mean, how many people you should see show up, especially, and I'm going to say this because I'm in this business. How many people you see show up in college every day, all they do is sit in their office. You never see anything, any outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Carolyn knows what I'm talking about. Gardner Webb, there's offices full in all these buildings. I don't know what those people do. We don't ever see anything out of them. And then when we see, all these people over here in enrollment, and then every year the enrollment was less than it was last year. But they were there every day. They were there every day. No, be accountable for outcomes, not just to show up. It's easy to put a check in the box, they were here or they weren't here. But we got to go deeper than that. We have to have higher expectations. They have to be accountable for outcomes, not just showing up. And that's a critical conversation, and that's a tough conversation. And the second part of that is when we say we want them to take initiative to meet the outcome, not work on some pet project that they're interested in. I told you the story of the small guy that used to work back and forth one side of the cafeteria all the time. He was in recruitment. He loved doing that. He loved talking with students. Everything was, he loved, but he took the initiative. He came to the lunchroom every day, except that wasn't what we needed him to do. We needed him to take the initiative to get out in somebody else's lunchroom and recruit us some students. Oh, he was there every day and he took the initiative and look at me every day. That's not meeting the objective. That's not meeting our goals here. That's not our outcome. Your outcome is bring in more students. We have other people who are working on retention that want to talk to them and do student services and all that, build relationships. That's not what we hired you to do. But if I did that, I'd have to leave campus and drive and yeah, yeah. But we hired you for recruitment, enrollment, not retention. Too many times, if somebody shows up in their office, oh, they're accountable. Too many times, oh, he's showing initiative. Is that what we needed him to do? Well, no, but he's doing something. No. I used to have this buddy all the time. He was ready for action all the time. Let's do something, even if it's wrong. That was what he'd say. Let's do something, even if it's no, no, no. You must be accountable for outcomes, and you must get your employees to understand that that as followers, we're responsible for these outcomes. And when we say take initiative to meet those outcomes, not to do something that you find fun or interesting or might further your career. And so we can't just throw that generic, be accountable and show initiative. We must be specific in what that means in the context of what is our goal, what's our outcome that's desired. We have this issue now at Gardner Webb. Where I think we have goal displacement. We've taken teaching out of the strategic plan. What? You're teaching college. How did you take teaching out of the strategic plan? Well, we went down another path, not understanding what our outcomes are and our goals. What our core competency is. My point is, it can happen even as big as a whole organization. So that individual employees can lose their focus. Your job as a leader to keep them focused on what our outcome is. What our outcome is. Otherwise, you lose the thread. Then you don't meet the objectives. And there's a reason why our enrollment has declined. I'm talking about undergraduate enrollment has declined. We've kind of missed a point here lately. Hopefully we'll get it back. All right, who's next? Carolyn's going now.
Me. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. So I'm not gonna lie, I kind of had a little bit of difficulty um with this assignment just because of the current, place that we're in right now. I'm kind of the person that, well, I'm not kind of the person, I'm definitely the person that starts things like right when they're assigned. So honestly, when I started this project, I feel that so much has changed just in like the week and a half that I've started it and was like doing my interviewing and everything like that. So much has changed in a week and a half. But moving forward, this is what I'm going to give you. So the followership project, um, excuse me. Followership is an essential but often overlooked aspect of leadership. Followership is the role of individuals in supporting and complementing leadership. Followership is often overlooked despite being crucial for organizational success. The VHA and understanding the followership is particularly important in a healthcare setting. And this presentation is going to cover interviews, research, as well as some recommendations. The VHA depends on strong leader-follower relationships to be able to effectively deliver our healthcare to our veterans. Many of you may not understand what the org chart looks like for the VA. So here's just a quick snapshot of it. It starts at the top with our deputy secretary, our secretary and deputy secretary. To kind of put things into perspective, over the past 3 months, we have had 3 different deputy secretaries. The first was Tanya Bradshaw. She had been in the position from 2021 until January 20th, 2025. After that, we had Todd Hunter, who assumed the role as an interim from January 25th to January of 2020, or I'm sorry, February of 2025. And then the third, who we currently have, is Doug Collins. Under this organizational chart, as you can see, it's branched out to several different divisions. If you look at the top, that starts with the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business and goes to the Center for Minority Veterans. This one right here is transitioning out, and it's being rolled into something different. Right now, not quite sure what that looks like, but as you can see, the VHA at the bottom falls directly under the Deputy Secretary. And the VHA is comprised of the Veterans Benefits Administration, Veterans Health Administration, and the National Cemetery Administration. I decided to do my interview with a chief and a supervisor of the VA. Both did not want me to disclose their names for obvious reasons. But I interviewed my supervisor, and my supervisor's view on followership involved active engagement and critical thinking. They found that the importance of trust and the accountability and communication in creating an effective followership. As Dr. Lamb was just saying about accountability, and it needs to be based on outcomes. I kind of I understand what that means, but with having these emails coming out where we have to show our 5 bullets of accountability, it kind of makes me really question some of what that accountability really means, and what that means for trust within our organization, and having open communication with our leadership, because honestly, our leadership just does not know either. I'm sorry, but this this project is difficult for me, so excuse me. I know I'm emotional. My supervisor feels that empowered employees can contribute ideas and help improve the organization. I'm sorry, Dr. Lamb. Can I take a minute?
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
You want us to go? We can come back to you.
Okay.
Who's ready to go?
Thank you. I'm sorry. My apologies, class.
I'm fine.
No, no problem at all. I know.
All right, Lauren, you're on deck here.
Yes, sir. Pulling everything up.
You upside down, Lauren.
I am?
Yes.
Now that's funny. I'm gonna just cut my camera off.
Okay.
You can't even see me, but there you go. I don't know how that happened. Okay. Thank you for informing me.
Who was it? Lionel Richie? Richie did Dancing on the Ceiling. That's what I thought you were doing.
No, no. Okay. Let me
Was that such an old reference that nobody even knew who Lionel Richie is?
I know him, but I don't know the song.
I know the song "Dancing on the Ceiling."
Yeah.
Mother Night. That was a nice album he had.
Mm-hmm.
I'll fix it after this class. But hi, class. My name is Lauren Truitt, as you know. And this scholarship project, it will be a presentation. And if I go to the next slide, but this is pretty much an outline. I'm going to go over the person I interviewed and the topics that we talked about. Also recommendations from the interview. and then I would lead into the three articles that we needed, just a quick overview, snapshot of it, and then reflection. So to begin, I actually interviewed one of my colleagues from undergrad, Jasmine D. She is currently, I just want to show you a picture. She is currently, she's about to graduate from the University of Minnesota, getting her Master of Education in Psychology. And then she's going to get the special certification to be a school psychologist upon graduation in May. And her position is currently the vertical team lead. And she's a team lead at Washington. It's in St. Paul, which is their neighbor. So just a quick overview. Again, she graduated from Gardner-Webb in 2021. She's currently a student at University of Minnesota, and she'll be graduating this May 2025 with her master's. And the vertical team lead, I learned a lot from our interview. The vertical team lead, she has a group. It's a group of educators and students from different graduate experience, and pretty much to me, it's like a internship in a way, but it's really a job, honestly. So they would place the University of Minnesota would place, I guess, certain students into certain schools, and they are there to really help the school when it comes to psychology. And pretty much her order of like the organization order is they have a school psychologist, as we'll get to at the bottom. You see, it's actually a licensed psychologist, and that's something that she'll be getting in the summer. And under that person, the school psychologist is the vertical team lead, and then under her will be the people that she leads. So it's really just given you know, tasks off of the licensed psychologist. So the schools are going with the universities around them and giving the students opportunities to learn and grow while they're in school. So they're working while they're in school. So she leads three people. And what stood out to me is that she was actually the three people that she's leading, she was actually in that position prior to being the vertical team lead. So she was leading, so she started off as a follower, and we got into that. And as we go into the questions, we'll talk about that. But she started off as a follower, and now she's a leader, and she's able to work alongside those who she leads and also the school psychologist. And I feel that that's important because of the next steps that she's wanted to take upon graduation in May. So understanding she started, if you want to say from the bottom, she started at the followership level. She's still a followership because she's actually have a leader such as the school psychologist, the licensed psychologist that they have currently, and she's leading a group of people. So basically her task, I don't have to read word for word. I just wanted to show you some of the points that we talked about within the interview. But basically her task is to schedule and set up meetings and also have the outline for the meeting. And it's just like to me, a liaison between the students and the educators as to the school psychologists. But she has, of course, more tasks than that as well. She's having to train and lead the three people that she leads. Um, to me, the way she explained it is the three people that she's leading is starting out. And for her, she's, of course, about to graduate and go into the school psychologist realm as being the head school psychologist. And if y'all have any questions within the presentation, feel free to stop and let me know. So as we dove more into the interview, I wanted to get Jasmine's point of view of what is a followership to her. And the way that she explained it to me is heavy on servant leadership. So not only, let me go to it. not only is it's important that she came from the followership, but she's also able to lead in a right way because of those that was her leaders before. So she pointed out different words that I really love as she detailed what followership was to her, such as active listening and communication, following direction, humility and understanding, collaboration, and different. I'm just pointing out different words that she brought out within the interview. And we got even deeper within the humility and understanding because in her view, she wanted to go deeper with the humility and understanding because she said not only should the followers have that humility and understanding, but also the leader. And we discussed that how to become a great leader, and it's understanding the people that you're leading, and also the understanding that not only do you want the humility and understanding from the follower, but they would want that from you, and that's how you get that relational aspect. And as we got deeper into that conversation, she started to explain that it's important to have that relationship with those that you're leading. That way they're understanding, okay, if I have any questions, if I have anything that I need to go over, because I know that you went through these steps that I'm going through right now, I can go to you. I feel trusted that I'm able to go to you in those situations. So this is some point of views that Jasmine D pointed out for followership. And again, collaborating, communication, following directions, like the willingness to learn is really something that we see a lot in the world. Like, are you willing to learn, or will you be stubborn and stuck in your ways, honestly? And humility and understanding. So now we would get into the points of the interview where I got into a deeper level of questions, such as how does one build a following, like it was on a syllabus. And Jasmine, again going into the humility understanding, I kind of answered that a little way when she discussed the humility and understanding of, okay, you need that not only as a follower but also as a leader. And she also just described, she said that the points that she mentioned of what she views as a followership goes hand in hand on how to build a following. So if you're able to understand the people that are around you that you're leading, and you're able to understand the expectations, like they're able to you able to articulate the expectations, so able to communicate, which is important to have in leadership and in life. So expectations of boundaries and communications, and it goes all around. She says that it also establishes routines, creating opportunities for those to learn. And you want your followers to have the opportunity to continue to learn. As Dr. Lamb, I'll get into that later, but as he would say, you want to like set the people that you're leading up for success in a way. So
Mhm.
that's how the interview went with this question: how does one build a following? And then I'll follow that question up with, how did you get your team to follow you? And she got into the what I previously talked about, how she was just in their shoes a couple years ago. She started the program in 2022 or 2023, and that's when she started that, being in the vertical team, but she wasn't, of course, the team lead. So she understood that, okay, I was just in their shoes, so I know what I needed during that time. And also going back to humility, she pointed out that not only do I want humility from those who are following me, but I need to show that as well. So she got into understanding that she needs to show that as well. She believes that when they see that she's have an open door and humble and has humility, that they would do the same. And that just that creates a flow of communication that may not have been there previously. So if we think about the places that we work, and we think about the places that we, like maybe church or different other organizations that people are leading us, once the leader really shows the humility and opens up in a way, in that magnitude, as a follower, you feel more open to go to that leader and to communicate on the mistakes, communicate on the questions. And that's pretty much how she talked about with the things that she discussed and talked about within this question of how did you get your following? Because of course, I'll also go into this. Of course, she went into the school year, she had the people that was going to follow her. But it's not only, okay, I have these people under me, but how can I lead them to success? Not how can I just, do nothing and just boss them around, but how can I actually be a great leader to where this is a stepping stone for them to get to the next stage and the next stage. Because what she explained is that they're all in school and she's about to graduate. So she's technically, if you want to say it, like a senior, and they could be freshmen and sophomore if you can have an analogy in that way. So it's just leading them to success. The next question I asked her also, one of the next questions I asked her is, how was it when you were in a followership position? And we got a little bit into this. Uh, I got a little bit into this in the presentation earlier of how she started where they were. And sometimes I believe it was Jeff that explained the person that started as the truck lifter, and now he's in the leader VP in sales. Sometimes companies, and I hear this from companies, they like to hire within because they know that they're bought in. They know that they understand the company, they understand the mission as we discussed. And once you start, it's like just leveling up each and every stage. Once you start from a certain position, whether you're in education, you start as a teacher, then assistant principal, then a principal. You understand how to talk to the teachers because you was a teacher before. And that's just how she got into, that's basically the things that she was explaining within this question. She was just in that position a couple of years ago, and now she know, okay, these are some things I wish I would have known starting out in my career as getting my master's in the School of Psychology. And then these are the things that I'm leaving with as I'm about to graduate. So those are some things that she like undove in within this question. So some recommendations is just to have a deeper understanding of the people that you're leading, because like we discussed, all people, everyone's different, honestly. So if you're able to understand, okay, this is how this person learns, or this is how I should be able to lead this person, that will be a great way for you to become a better leader, and as the followers to get to the position to where they're able to lead as well. And then also to continue to lead your followers to get to the level that you are going with. If I go back to, she started off as a follower, she's still a follower because she's still following the licensed school psychologist, so she's pretty much in between. So just also lead your followers to the level that you are, and if they don't want to go to that level, lead the followers to the level that they want to get to. I think that creates a great leader. And then the articles, of course, Jeff, he went in a deep detail. So I just pointed out the subordinate contributor, and then a partner, politician, and those different things. So understand, it gets to go into deeper detail of who you're leading. And I think this information is really great for me to know starting out in my career, because I can see this with the people I work with today. It's like, okay, this person is this person is that, and it's another way of how you can understand how to communicate to that person as well. And then the two articles that I went into, I just went when I Googled and everything, Harvard popped up, and they have of course, they have a lot of articles on followership and followers. And one of them was in praise of followers. And a quote that I really liked from this was, courageous followers can keep a leader honest and out of trouble. So I like that. And it goes hand in hand into what we discussing and talking about today. And then another article from Harvard was what every leader needs to know about followers. And the quote that stood out to me in this article was, when it comes to engaged follower types, leaders need to watch them overall and pay particularly close attention to whether their subordinates are for or against them. And that stood out to me, of course, because if we go back to the article that Dr. Lamb shared to us, it talks about the subordinates. So that's just some more articles that dive into the things that I can see as I interview and as I dive into the articles. And then reflection, like Miss Tawanda said today, like it's a lot of information to take in today that will be very useful as we continue to grow into our careers. But as I reflect, as Dr. Lamb mentions a lot, a great leader was a follower first, so I see that. And then also followers help a leader grow, and a leader should help a follower grow. So that's a reflection that I have. And then understanding the type of people you're leading is important. That way you can understand how to communicate and how to relay message, how to train them, how to lead them. So it's understanding the type is really kind of the first step to me. And then reflection on yourself as a leader is important as well, to understand, okay, what can I do better? How can I lead my group better? How can I lead the people that are following me better to get to a position even better than where I am at? And then as I close, here are the references. If I have any questions.
Excellent. Have a couple of follow-ups.
Okay.
When Lauren mentioned, you can go ahead and stop your share,
Okay.
courageous followers, keep the leader honest and out of trouble. That's only if you encourage feedback from your followers and don't just expect them all to be yes men and women. That's that open communication that you have to have those critical conversations. If you never want to hear the bad news, they'll tell you what you want to hear because you condition them to do that. That's Skinnerian behavioralism. We condition people, if can you handle the truth? That's very, very important, is that you encourage that open communication, and that feedback is real and not just what you want to hear. And of course, you know me, I'm a big believer that you've got to sit in the seats. You got to be a follower first. You have to matriculate through the organization or organizations. That leadership's not a position. It's a series of activities. You learn a lot of those activities along the way in different followership roles and different lower leadership roles because you're a follower in those. If you simply are transactional and work on this positional power all the time, you will not be a successful leader. The followers will not follow you because you're generally only in it for what's good for you and not what's good for the group. And you lose sight. That's when goal displacement happens. That's when you lose sight of the goal. The goal is not to make the leader look good every day. The goal is to meet your objectives. And too many people hijack the organization for their own personal benefits, and people see that immediately, and they won't follow people who do that. It's just that simple. Then it's everybody for themselves, and they model that behavior, your behavior. They reflect it back to you. So you've got to reflect on your behavior. What am I doing that would cause people to want to follow me? And as long as you are pure in your intent, that we're about objectives here. If you understand that, people will follow you. But if you're only out for yourself, people won't follow you. You've got to be clear in that you're all about the outcomes. What are we here for every day? Not just to provide jobs. What are we here for? So in 738, as I've told you, the first case study you'll have is about the Community Action Network. It's a nonprofit group I believe it's in Texas. And you can't ever forget that some people are there for the numbers, and some are there for how how well you serve the people that you're leading. It's not just about how many, it's about how well. That's the common thread of all for impact or nonprofit organizations. We have to be concerned with how many we serve and how well we serve them. Both of those outcomes have to be in the forefront. When we talk about outcomes, it's not always just numbers. And you must inspire and motivate your followers. It's not so that they treat your customers well. The quality of your service, not just the number, not just those metrics. That's what differentiates us from a manufacturing environment. That's why I always talk about that's separate. That's a numbers game. But we have to be concerned not only with how many, but how well. And to do that, you have to be a reflective leader. You have to inspire and motivate. You have to grow your followers. You have to do all these things. It's much different than in a manufacturing environment. You have to sit in the seats. You have to have been in that role yourself. So that you have empathy and a common understanding with the people that you're trying to lead. If you don't have that, that empathy gene is missing, unfortunately. All right. Very good job, Lauren. Thank you for your presentation today. Who's next?
I can go if that's okay.
All right. We're back.
Back to me.
Good for you.
All right. Okay, so followership project. I went over this slide already, so I'm going to move on to the next. I did my introduction. I'm going to stay away from the organizational chart and just move right in, okay? Alrighty, so again, I had spoke with my supervisor and his views on followership, which involved active engagement and critical thinking. My supervisor viewed followership involved dealt with the importance of trust, accountability, and communication in creating effective followership. He also felt that empowered employees can contribute ideas and help improve the organization. And my interview illustrates how proactive followers positively can impact the workforce. I also interviewed my chief. So the way that it works within the VA is your chief is the one that's over the department. They would be the person that you would need approval for going into another role, something like that. Your direct supervisor, who was the first person that I interviewed, is the one that would approve like my leave or things like that. They're also the one that would approve like educational things if I wanted to pursue something different. My chief's perspective was slightly different than my direct supervisor's perspective. The chief's perspective on followership felt that it for them was a partnership between the leaders and the followers. They felt that effective followers not only complete tasks, but also challenge assumptions and contribute solutions. They also felt that mentorship and recognition helped to build trust and develop stronger followers. The chief, she believed that leadership success depends on engaged and competent followers. My research on followership was, one was the Rosenbach model of followership and its relevance on the two key dimensions, which were performance initiative, which is task effectiveness, and relationship initiative, which is engagement and leadership and the team with engagement with leadership and the team. The four types which have been discussed previously are your subordinate, which are low performance, low relationship engagement. They follow orders passively and doesn't take much initiative. The contributor is a high performance, low relationship engagement. They're highly skilled, but they do not engage with leadership or team collaboration. The politician is low performance, high relationship engagement. They build relationship but lack that strong work performance. And the partner, which is the ideal follower. They're high performance, high relationship engagement. They engage in both task and team collaboration effectively. Followership in healthcare. Um, Effective followership is crucial in healthcare settings where teamwork impacts patient care. Recent findings from the followership in healthcare clinicians by Alonzi in 2023 is a study on how strong followership improves patient safety and efficiency. Healthcare professionals must be able to transition between leadership and followership roles depending on what the situation is. For example, myself as a nurse, when I worked on the units, if there was a code or something like that, we had to immediately activate into what is the first thing that we need to do to make sure that this patient is safe or that they're able to survive whatever it is that's happening at that moment. Engaged followers in healthcare can reduce medical errors and improve collaboration. Across analysis of the findings, there were similarities between the supervisors and the chief's perspectives. Their emphasis on proactive engagement aligned with the partner role of Rosenbach's model. The themes such as trust and accountability and mentorship. This also reinforced the idea that strong followership contributes to better team performance and leadership success. Some recommendations for building followership. Foster open communication. Leaders should encourage open discussion and feedback from their followers. Provide developmental opportunities. Organizations should offer mentorship and training to improve followership skills. 3, recognize and reward contributions. By acknowledging engaged followers, this can motivate others to be more proactive. 4, encourage critical thinking. Leaders should promote problem solving and allow followers to challenge ideas constructively. And 5, model exemplary behavior. Leaders must embody integrity, accountability, and engagement to set a standard for followership. My reflection, this project reshaped my understanding of followership. Followership is an active process and not just a passive compliance. Adopting the partner role can improve teamwork and organizational outcomes. And being committed to fostering trust, engagements, and collaboration in the professional interactions. And these were the references that I sourced.
Very good.
Thank you. Sorry, I was quick.
No, that's
Just tried to
fine.
get through it.
That's fine.
Are there any questions?
Yours is kind of a summary of the big picture from today's project. I'll do the big reveal now because it's most appropriate. Carolyn just hit the nail on the head. You can't be an effective leader if you don't understand followership. That part's got to come first. If you can't have empathy and understand what your followers are going through, then you can't lead them. It's just that simple. And so the first tenet of leadership is followership. I've said that a million times and I'll say it again. That's the first tenet. Becoming a leader is understanding followership. If you can do that, then you begin to understand what your followers might need from you as a leader. And when you foster that open communication where they can tell you what they need, and your job, back to Collins, good to great. Anytime you hire somebody, your number one goal is to make them successful. That's your number one goal with them, is to make them successful, and your success by extension comes through those of your employees, the people that you lead. You got to understand that you cannot be successful unless they're successful. It's just that simple. And that's where that teaching, mentoring, professional development role comes in. Is to get them. You don't always get the people that you want, but you build the ones you need. That's up to you to do that. And if you understand followership, you understand the need to do that. That it's not about it's bigger than just them and you. It's about the organizational outcomes to get what we need from in terms of those outcomes. Can't ever forget what our core competency is. Again, it's not about providing jobs for any of us. It's, organizations are about their core competency. What is it that we're supposed to deliver? Can't ever lose sight of that. All right, very good. Tawanda raised her hand. Go right ahead.
And you were talking about the big picture, Dr. Lamb, and about outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of public policy is in place for the good of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I think that's just, it's just unfortunate that everybody don't look at the outcome. They just make decisions based on, like you said, you go so far away from what you're intended to do. The organizational goal. Is it meeting the organizational goal? Yes. If it's not, then then those kind of changes need to take place. But
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Goal displacement. That's one of the terms you need to research and get very, very familiar with as a leader, is goal displacement. We assume a goal different than what the organizational intent is, and that way we don't hit our outcomes. Again, if we're just there to provide jobs or comfort or those kinds of things, then sometimes we do what's best for the employees rather than the client system. And then the client system leaves us. Your vision can be your own, but your mission depends upon the client system. You got to have customers. Get back to Gardner Webb. We're supposed to, spread Christianity throughout the land, but we can't do that if we don't have any customers, if we don't have students. And again, the fellow that was supposed to be out recruiting them, he had another goal in mind every day, which was his comfort and convenience. We can't allow that as organizations. Oh, but he's in there every day and the kids really love him. Okay, but we've already got these. His job is to get more that look like these. How can we spread the word of God and Christianity throughout the world if we don't have any takers, if we don't have anybody showing up here? The folks that are here, we're already believers. We're trying to get more folks. We need customers to keep the door open. Got to pay the bills. Sometimes the bottom line is the bottom line. You got to have customers. You got to have clients. And the purpose of your organization is to provide something to them. The outcome is customer based. Your outcomes can't be employee based. Let me say that again. That's pretty good. Your outcomes have to be customer based. They can't be employee based. You can't survive. You won't survive. Your organization will not survive. That's how that works. All right. Next presentation.
All right, that'll be me.
There you go.
All right. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Naaman Burns. This presentation, I didn't make a PowerPoint to go with it. I took all the information that I received through the research articles that I read and the interview that I conducted. I just put it into a Word document to submit. But I did highlight some things that I really want to share with you that I found. First, I wanted to start off by emphasizing that the face of some of these largest organizations will be nothing without the followers that have been a part of building the company into what they are today. Followers have been a foundational piece to organizational success since the start of history. Before I go into my interview, I conducted an interview with my school's principal, Mr. Smith. But before I go into that, I want to talk about Rosenberg's thoughts or those four different types of followers. Because when I conducted the interview, a lot of the things that my principal, or a lot of the characteristics that my principal was talking about really coincided with some of this information right here, some of these different types of followers. So partner, our ideal members to have because they possess skill sets and passion towards the mission. Subordinates are followers who also have great impact on a organization because they possess the necessary skills to perform well when directed to. But the thing about that is they lack the drive to take initiative and to do more than that, and are not ideal candidates for leadership. Contributors are a type of follower who behaves in exemplary ways. They work hard and are known for their quality of work. The only downside about a contributor is that they rarely seek to understand the boss's perspective and lacks initiative. All right. So in the interview with Holly Hill Elementary School's principal, Mr. Johnny Smith, his perspective of leadership as it pertains to followership, at the forefront of his belief, the organization that he leads, he feels like he sets it up to be a team organization. He further explains that in the business of education, he and his teachers have a common goal. We're all here to educate the teachers. We're working together to make sure that students receive the quality education that they need and deserve. He did say that, yes, as the chief executive officer of the school, although that they are a team, he does have to make some isolated decisions. Even when he does that, he still keeps the primary stakeholder, which are the students in mind, the families, and the staff. So when he's making these decisions, although those are made individually, he still keeps that team mindset in mind, focused towards the goal. Smith has had to rely on his staff relentlessly on the day-to-day operation, and he admits that it's hard to let go at times. He further explains that it's easiest to let go when he has staff involved in carrying out the tasks that he can trust. He said that followers who do well with following directions are nice to have. Those are subordinates right there. Followers who do well with following directions are nice to have, but members that he appreciates the most are the ones who speak up and contribute to the growth and fulfillment of the school's mission. This line of communication is what enhances the team relationship and the unity of that shared goal. The balance that Holly Hill Elementary has amongst leadership and followership is the emphasis of teamwork and collaboration. As a leader, Mr. Smith says that he works hard to make sure his team feels heard, to ensure employees have the opportunity to give genuine feedback. Smith will also often share his viewpoint on subject matters for each, only after each member has had the opportunity to express theirs. He went on to saying that if he gives his viewpoint or idea before he allows other staff to contribute theirs, a lot of times they'll just piggyback off of what he says, kind of like hop on the bandwagon. Mm-hmm. So before he shares his idea, he allows the team to share theirs. In the case that members of teams found themselves opposed or in a place of challenging Mr. Smith, he expressed that he doesn't instantly feel attacked or any attack on his authority. He often takes these actions to be not an issue at all. Rather, he sees it as a form of feedback. He said the only portion of this feedback that he at times is complicated to or not received well is the way that it is provided. Sometimes employees are not relaying the feedback in a respectful manner or in the manner that he would like it to be provided to him. The perspective gained from the articles read and the interview kind of aligned with each other very well. As I was talking about some of the characteristics that Mr. Smith said that he found favorable, I could quickly relate it to what I've read in these articles and the reflection from the text provided by the course. I think that the interview led to the enhancement need to continue to build employee staff relationship. Try to build that comfort. If it's communication that's needed to keep everybody on board and towards the same vision, same mission, that communication needs to keep being worked on. And if there was a struggle with how communication takes place, or the way that how he said that communication is given to him, maybe there should be some type of intervention, not necessarily intervention, but a way to help nurture that relationship that they have with each other. So that would be my recommendation to them, is continue to harness that conversation, that relationship that they have with each other, where they can be comfortable to continue to communicate. And reflection with this presentation, I do a lot of personal self-reflection, like everyday life. So anytime I do something good or bad, I always wonder if I could do something better, if I did something different. And these last couple of weeks, looking at these different qualities of a follower, because that's the position that I'm in. Although yes, I lead my students in my classroom, but in the grand scheme of the organization, I follow the leader. I find myself as a contributor. And I say that because, and I mentioned this earlier, because I do feel competent, and I am seen as competent to be able to conduct and to do the tasks at hand. But I do find myself not to be as open or vocal at times where I feel like I could be. And in reflection with that, I guess I need to continue on working on myself, on trying to open up, because outside of just being relaxed enough to do it, I don't think there's anything stopping me from doing it. It's not like I don't want to be a part of the team. It's just the comfort level. Honestly, that concludes the interview that I conducted, the research. I do have a lot more written out, but I don't want to read everything word for word to you. Tawana, I see your hand up.
When you talked about being comfortable, is it your comfortability or being comfortable to communicate things with your administrator?
No, I can communicate with my administrator. Just me personal, just anxiety naturally, stuff like that.
Okay, that leads to a good question. Do we need all of our followers to work in team settings?
And you have to build on strengths. I think that was something I learned from my interview, of course, and I think it was in somebody's presentation. But if that's your passion and that's your lane, and you're fulfilled in that role, I think you kind of, and if we're achieving the organizational goal, whether you work in a team of 1 or a team of 10, because like you said, we basically looking at the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so customer based, not employee based.
I think one of the worst things organizations can do is not understand why we have people working teams. Every task that we have in organizations doesn't have to be done by a team. Sometimes we do teaming just because for the teaming. If we focus on outcomes, we understand that not every task requires a team or that everybody be a part of the team. There are some singular things that you have to do. And if you have people who are better at those, again, everybody doesn't have to be a partner. Everybody doesn't have to move into that role. Sometimes you have people at other roles in your organization and according to what they need. Now, that doesn't mean that they're there forever. You can develop them and give them opportunities to develop into higher and higher. But if they don't, sometimes that's okay. But don't pigeonhole people. Well, he can only do this, and we'll just have to sign him to do that all the time. Give people opportunities, and as they grow, and Naaman said something very important. Encourage your employees to reflect on themselves. Give them opportunities to reflect with you, not just with themselves, but with you. Give them the opportunity to reflect. Give them the opportunity to have conversations other than in an evaluative sense. The only time you ever talk to somebody is at your annual evaluation time. You need to have a lot of informal conversations. That informal communication is a big function in leadership. Being able to informally talk with people, where they get to know you, you get to know them, they get to see your vision. They get to understand what our core competency is and what we're trying to achieve. You need to have those conversations, those informal conversations with people to find out what their comfort level is. But again, circling back to the original here, just because somebody's uncomfortable in a team doesn't mean that they're a bad employee or they don't have value. You need to find out, do you want to become better at this? Is this something that we'll give you plenty of things that you can do singularly, but we'll give you opportunities. You just need to tell us the opportunities that you want, what you're comfortable with. Bring these people along. Don't just throw them in over their head. And make everybody work in a team because of the team's not the objective. The outcome is the objective. And if you just focus on everybody's got to do it this way, then you've taken the focus off of the outcome and put it on the process, which is not good. It's not good. We have to be outcomes driven in leadership. We have to be. That's what leadership is. Trying to accomplish a goal. Trying to accomplish an outcome. That's what leadership is. It's a series of activities that lead to the accomplishment of a goal, task, objective, outcome. That in essence is leadership, is accomplishing something. Getting a group or an individual or a group or groups of individuals or to accomplish a goal. School business is student performance, state report card, proficiency score, growth score. That's our business. What do they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. What do we do in school? We teach kids. And we have measures of whether they're learning or not, whether we're being successful, whether our outcomes are being met. It's that way in all organizations. You have to meet your outcomes or you won't stay in business. If you don't serve the clients, you won't stay in business. You won't have anything to lead. And you've got to have customers. You've got to have customers. And the only way that you get and keep customers is that get what they paid for, what they came to you for. If they don't get that, they won't keep coming. It's just that simple. You can't outmarket a bad organization. Let me say that again. You can't outmarket. You can't just, we'll just put all our money in marketing. We'll get more customers. We won't serve the bad news will beat you home with social media now and all the ways that people can be informed. If you don't deliver customer service, if you don't deliver the objectives that is intended, the word will get out and you won't get more customers. You can't just put up more billboards and do more, media marketing. That won't fix your problem if you're a bad organization. It will not. You can't overcome that. If your service is bad, it will become known. And you won't have anything to lead. All right. Thank you, Naaman. That was very good. Very reflective. I like that. I like when people reflect. We all ought to do more of that. All right. Do we have any more today? I see Latasha's with us today. Thank you for being with us, Latasha.
Yes, I'm ready.
We have a couple of more. So we have another one here. Very good. So we'll go to Latasha.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all see my screen?
We can.
Okay, so I interviewed Miss Carlita Goff, and let me figure out how to make this screen go to the next slide. Okay, so I interviewed Miss Carlita Goff, who is a senior manager distribution design of Santee Cooper. Um, she has a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering. And so Santee Cooper is um, a trusted and reliable public power and water provider in South Carolina. And so this is just kind of how her staff team is kind of structured. So Ms. Carlita is one of the four managers under her director of retail customer service. And then under her, she has four managers. And then under each manager, they have about 4 to 5 direct reports. But overall, she has 24 direct reports altogether. And she has been in leadership for over 24 years. And she has been employed with this company for 30 plus years. And so these are some of the questions that I asked Ms. Carlita within our interview, and I won't read them all. But basically, to sum up my interview, she informed me of what she thought followership was, which she said means being responsive to leadership, being committed, offering constructive feedback when needed, being accountable for tasks or projects assigned, and offering to assist leadership when requested to or when the need arises. And she stated that how one builds followership is by leading through example, um, treating everyone with dignity and respect, being helpful to others, and becoming a go-to resource, as well as a subject matter expert in that area of expertise. Um, and she said that the one thing that she does as a leader is she adheres to the platinum rule of treating others the way that they want to be treated, and always remembering that everyone has something to contribute to the team efforts. So after reading the Rosenbach article of the four types of followers, I gathered from my interview that Carlita develops her staff as partners, or that her department they operate as partners. Carlita has done the job that everyone under her has, especially being that she's been with the company for over 30 plus years. So all roles under her, she has already operated in them. And so with that being said, that was one of her biggest things, is that she leads by example. And so she demonstrates partnership with her followers by actively listening to their input, valuing their ideas, providing opportunities for growth and development, openly acknowledging their contributions, and creating an environment where constructive feedback is encouraged and respected. Um, which essentially has her, like, her team operates more as collaborators rather than just simply having her subordinates under her, if that makes sense. And her thing was what she gathered from the interview from this project with us. She said that most of us will be followers before we even become leaders, and we will also be followers while leading others. And so the recommendations that I had for her team, I didn't really see any type of, like, when you're looking at the teams, you have pros and cons. I didn't really find anything as a con from her team because they seem to truly operate as a close knit team. So I just said that um, they should practice more emotional intelligence. So that was one of the recommendations that I had, because they seem to have a strong followership within their department. And I said emotional intelligence because it contributes to followership by enabling individuals to better understand and respond to their leaders' emotions, navigate complex work dynamics, build strong relationships with each other, and actively contribute to the team by being able to adapt and be supportive, ultimately enhancing their effectiveness as followers within the organization. Um, and so she said that, empathy was a big thing for leaders because they need to be able
Mm-hmm.
to adjust and adapt as leaders and be able to um, like check the pulse. And so that's why I also recommended that they continue having their one-on-one meetings that they already currently do, because this will help them check the pulse of the team and also strengthen the direct reports. And then lastly, as a leader, I felt like even though she has an open door policy, that she should, just take a back seat occasionally and allow her team members to lead other projects and or the meetings, which will provide guidance when needed, and not her necessarily dominating the discussion at all times.
Excellent. Stay right there for a minute, Latasha, on
Mhm.
that slide. Latasha did a much better job than I did, but she just summarized what I was just talking about from the last presentation. That emotional intelligence, that's empathy. You can only have that if you've done the jobs that those people have done. Sit in the seats. You can't forget what the challenges were when you were in that role, and the way that you can help others when you lead people in those roles that you used to have is to remember and have that empathy, that emotional intelligence of what they're living through. You don't get that if you didn't sit in those seats. It's very hard to have emotional intelligence, very hard to have empathy for your employees underneath you if you never did that task. If you didn't do that, it's very hard. And then again, thank you, Latasha, for amplifying those one-on-one meetings. When you have those informal, I'm not talking about an evaluation, those one-on-one where you talk to people. You've got to have those. And then I love that, take a back seat occasionally. That simply means that everything can't be about you. It can't always be about you. It's about the objective. It's about what it's the bigger good. You can't be transactional. Transactional is only about you. What can you do for me? The whole notion of a servant leader is that you take the back seat, that you try to make your employees successful. That's your job, not just to make yourself successful. So that's a great summary there, Latasha. Thank you.
Thank you. And so my key takeaway from this project, I really enjoyed this project because it helped me to have a better understanding of what followership is. I have always been one who has said I'm a leader, not a follower, until I did this project. Because when in fact I do follow others by wanting to develop myself into becoming a better leader. And then speaking with Ms. Carlita, I also learned that leaders also learn from their followers, because it's important for them to take advantage of the opportunities to learn from their subordinates, as well as allow room for their followers to feel valued, and that their contributions to the organizational goals matter. And so, again, as you can see on the slide, my one major key takeaway is that followership is important to leadership because followers and leaders influence each other. Both are needed for an organization to succeed. Followership helps team work together to achieve a goal. And good followers are responsible, they take initiative, and they support their leaders and colleagues. And lastly, followership and leadership are important together because the effectiveness of any leadership endeavor relies heavily on the quality of the followership it receives. So the true potential of individuals and organizations is relied through the seamless integration of leadership and followership. And this concludes my presentation.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Let's do a few key takeaways from today, and I'll start with mine, and then we'll let you contribute any that you have. Leadership always has to focus on outcomes. Always. It always has to focus on outcomes because leadership is leading a group of people through a series of activities to accomplish a task. That's what leadership is. It's always focused on the outcome. In nonprofit, non-manufacturing environments, we have to be concerned about the number that we serve, the number and how well we serve them in terms of our customers, the service that we're providing, the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. We can't separate the two. That we have to have both. In some funding authorities for nonprofits are, it's all about the numbers, but then other folks are about how well they were served. And so you got to remember, it's not just how many, but how well, always in a leadership role, how many and how well, both of those come, but can't separate those two, and that we're always objective, and that we have to have emotional intelligence, empathy for our employees, and we gain that from sitting in the seats that they sit in, and not forgetting the path that we had to follow, and not having expectations above what is reasonable for those employees along the way. Everybody doesn't want to be in charge. Everybody's not going to become a partner. We find them where they are and we move them along at what they feel comfortable with. You know, the notion is that when you hire somebody, and this is my final, your number one goal when you hire somebody or assume leadership of somebody, when you take a position, is to make them successful. You can never forget that. It's not about making you successful. Your success will come through them. Your success will come through those of your employees, the people, the followers, the people that you lead. All right. Anybody else have any closing words of wisdom today? I'm very pleased with your project. I am so pleased that I didn't have to sit here for 4 hours and just look at, that we had variation today, that it was about the content and not about the process. It was about the quality of the ideas, the things that you're learning. That's what leadership is. Just putting up a PowerPoint and reading it is not leadership. It's the quality of the thought that goes in it and the connections that you can make. And I loved what y'all did today. It was very, very enjoyable. I can't believe that this amount of time. I mean, this has been good. Very pleased with your presentations today. Latasha, I'll get back to you on yours. I've got a couple other things, but I'll get to that today. Anybody else have anything? Remember, I have sign-up times if you need to meet with me individually. I'm glad to do that. Latasha?
Dr. Lim?
I was going to just ask if I could just meet you one-on-one, like right after this class. I just had
You got to
quick
give me
question.
I have to go through the process of my processing my video and doing all that stuff. We can stay online and I can just pause it when we get done. Yeah, I
Okay.
can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
But once I go off, it's about 30 minutes before I can come back on.
Okay.
All right. Jeff, you had something?
Yes, sir. I was just thinking, and I know everyone wants to try to accomplish the partnership side of the matrix, but I think at any given time, we can be in any one of those quadrants based on
Yeah.
what organization that we're in. And if we look at each one of those, we do see some positive things that each one of the parts actually have. But it's how do we move forward wherever we find ourselves in our organization? And
Right.
so that's just a thought I wanted to put in
And
there.
the same for all of our employees. Again, thank you, Jeff. Everybody doesn't need to be, we don't need everybody to be a partner. We don't need everybody to be a boss. We need people for their roles, but we need to find what level they're comfortable with. And the same thing, we assume different roles, different times. And we have to be comfortable in all those different roles. And we can't have expectations beyond that role for people that work for us. We can't get mad that people didn't step up and be partners when that wasn't the role that they fulfill in our organization. We can't blame the victim. We do that a lot in organizations. We blame the victim. We blame people for their shortcomings when we didn't train or prepare or give them the opportunity to be anything other than what they were. And then we were mad that they weren't something different when we needed it. Did you train them to do that? Did you encourage them to do that? Did you give them the opportunity to do that? Well, no, they should have just took it. No, that's not how that works. Your job is to make them successful. If they're not being successful, that's because you're not being successful. That's the thing is a lot of times we blame the victim because it amplifies or eliminates or shows our weaknesses as leaders, the things that we didn't do. And that's why we take it personally sometimes. We didn't do a good enough job with them. That's why, when we do all these different types of interviews in the College of Ed, they always know that my question is going to be about assessment. Assessment drives instruction. If you don't know that, then you can't be in the school business. But if you're not assessing what you're doing, then how do you know if it's working or not? or that people are getting what they need. You have to be assessment focused all the time as a leader. At whatever level of leadership, whether it's a classroom teacher, you have to be focused on assessment. What are people doing? Now, it was self-serving when I said I was so happy about your presentations today, but that's what I'm talking about. You're getting what I want. You're getting the things that you need. Well, that's my assessment is that you're learning the things that you need to learn. We have to reflect on those things, and I have to be able to give you feedback. No, that's why I started out with, I'm not interested in you learning how to do some technology program that blows our socks off, that moves and has sparklers and fireworks. I'm interested in what you're learning, what you're reflecting on. I really like that Naaman says he reflects a lot. That's that takes you down the path of leadership when you can self-reflect. That you understand it's about, that leadership is about followership, having empathy, putting yourself in their place, understanding what they need and want. We have to assess where we are. That's what leadership is. Leadership is, there is no leadership without assessment. Tawanda, you've got something?
Yes, and it was about my key takeaway, and it was something Tasha talked about as far as followership. Um, in all the reading, and when the article stressed it, it was just like you always hear who wants to be a leader. You'll never hear like who wants to be a follower.
Yeah.
Such a bad thing, and we put such a bad connotation on it that we don't understand. In order to be a leader, you got to have followers. In order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. It's they're
Yes.
inherently connected. And so, just like Latasha said, it has just really changed how I look at followership, like being a follower.
The whole idea of this task is to change your lens and to educate you that we need followers in order to be leaders, and we have to be followers ourselves. That was the whole goal of today, of this activity. That's what was the whole idea, is to change your lens, as Tawanda said, as to what follower and understand the value of followership. The first tenet of leadership is followership, and you have to understand that relationship. Followers are not bad. It's not a bad thing. It is not less than. When you can understand that, then you can begin to effectively move into leadership roles once you understand followership. It's the first tenet. First tenet of leadership is followership. You have to understand it. There are many more down the road. I mean, John Maxwell has 21 laws of leadership. There's a lot, but the first is followership. The very first one. That is correct. All right. Anybody else today? All right. Well, thank you for being with me today. I always enjoy our time. I'm looking forward to our next video session and our final get together. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we're back together again. All right. So, Latasha, you're going to stay on. I am going to stop my recording and let everybody else go. Have a good day. Thank you for being with me today. Prayers for everybody.